Hello, 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 everybody. How are we all doing today? Let me work quickly. Boom, bang, and we're here. How's everybody doing today? Me? Well, I'm glad you asked. Doing great. I had some weird. I keep saying this is gonna keep coming back to this. I had some weird dreams last night again. I had dreams that I was doing yard work, and my neighbor was throwing wood into my yard, just kind of like throwing it over a fence. I was like, "What the hell are you throwing this wood in my yard for?" Like, well, it was your tree, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." I'm like, what is going on, man? What is my brain trying to tell me with that? I have no idea. I had a yeah, weird dreams. What can I say? Well, today we've got a lot of stuff to have to do with the Stop Killing Games movement, and I forgot to close my door, and my dog is barking. Hang on, let me go close my door. But yeah, apparently there's been a lot of things happening with the Stop Killing Games movement. Looks like Bellular and Endymion have been covering it, which I'm super happy. We're gonna move into a Timothy Kane video. This one's has been making the rounds with a lot of other YouTubers, and I want to see it because I have a lot of opinions about game design and how the games industry has been going, as you do. Then another Bellular video about Microsoft Gaming, which we've been kind of following that. Microsoft Gaming has been not super good lately, and they did just change their CEO, so I'm kind of curious about what happened about that. And then we're going to move into a Shoe on Head video that came out about a week ago that I didn't get to do last week, so hopefully I can do this week because, I like Shoe on Head. I hope you do too. And then there's one from Sydney that was released not too long ago about influencers, and that one's got me shaking in me boots. I don't identify as an influencer though, so. All right. Let's see what the Stop Killing Games movement has been happening and why it might be just cracking America.
For the longest time, the USA basically looked like a lost cause for the Stop Killing Games movement. Compared to the UK and the EU, consumer rights were much weaker.
Because it was a specific UK thing.
Likely to change.
Or sorry,
but
EU
as
thing.
Of February this year, that's actually kind of changed a bit because...
So, introduced by Assemblymember Ward, February 12th, 2026, an act to add Chapter 6.8, commencing with Section 2660 to Division 8 of the Business and Professionals Code relating to business. This is in California.
So one
okay.
State looks like it is starting to move, and it's in the form of the Protect Our Games Act that's been working its way through the state legislature in California.
I will say that it makes sense that this would start in California, because usually IP laws are pretty good there. I will give California one thing is they do try to, at least in a way, protect consumer rights when it comes to media. Which makes sense because they're a huge media hub, so.
As of last week, it's cleared another milestone, and it's one that could actually change end-of-life support for games in the US. It's fairly big, so today, that's what we're going to break down. Back in 2024...
I'm curious as to, what they're attempting to do to that, because, like I said, I've got my own opinions on how I would change the law for that, but I'm curious as to how California is going to approach that, because sometimes they have some really good hits. Sometimes they have some not so good hits. And I'm going to be curious to how much education they have on video games and how much makes that into the law.
California passed AB 2426. Now, that is a law that actually made stores basically say whether you are buying a product or a license. Now, I can't blame you for not being aware of that law. And while there was no direct link, it's fairly interesting that shortly after that passed, Valve changed Steam's checkout notification.
Okay, a purchase of a digital project grants a license for the product on Steam for full Steam. Okay, that makes sense. So they did pass a law that says that you have to notify that you're only selling a license, not a product. Okay.
To make sure that it's very clear that whenever you buy a game on Steam, you're actually buying a license to
Which
that
I don't
game.
agree with. I don't like that.
Worldwide,
but I can understand why it is.
Now, of course, California is just one state out of many. But as of last year, it was also the 4th largest economy in the world. I guess it's a bit of a similar story to what we see with loads of EU stories.
Yeah, California's economy, a lot of people from outside the US, I know I have some outside US viewers, they have quite literally, not just for like federally, like them as an individual state has the fourth largest economy in the world, like ahead of a lot of other countries, which is just insane. Like thinking about one state in the United States, I think we've got a couple in there on the top 10 of economies in the world. So that's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but once you understand like California itself is basically the size of a country, it makes a lot, and they have like some industries that service the entire world. It makes a lot of sense.
If a company has got to comply,
So if they
in
make
one
the laws for the trickle
huge
down to the
market
rest
that
of the
they
like
kind of
other
can't really
places,
ignore, then
probably
it's
would be
often easier
huge.
and cheaper for them to just harmonize their new standards globally. And
Mm-hmm.
that is why this new bill, championed by Stop Killing Games themselves, actually does matter. It gives
That's good that they got the backing of Stop Killing Games.
license holders new protections and consumer rights. Okay, we've done the background, so now let's talk about the actual thing itself. This is AB 1920.
It's the POG Act. Protect Our Games, POG.
One. It's the bill that we're talking about, and it's called the Protect Our Games Act.
Oh my God, it
was
really is
filed
the
by
POG Act.
six-year veteran assemblyman
They really called it the POG Act. Are you kidding me, brother?
Chris Ward, and he's basically a guy with a marked interest in consumer affairs. I mean, in the same month he introduced this bill, he also
do live in Clown World.
reintroduced legislation to ban surveillance pricing. It's
Okay, yeah, surveillance pricing. Oh my God, that is so predatory. So surveillance pricing, as far as I'm assuming that it is, because I'm going to assume this is what it is when they price differently based on like where you live, what your like economic situation is as an average of where you live. I don't like that because there you go. Dynamic pricing is what it's generally called, but I think that this is also the same thing. And I think that it should just be when you price a product, it should be that price everywhere, because then you start getting into the point where you can start predating on people in higher income areas, and things just become more expensive for the people who don't earn the higher income but are in higher income areas.
I'm going to call a more
It's more
descriptive
fair
way of
when it's
talking about dynamic pricing,
just in
something
one-
that people are really afraid
one
of
product
coming
price.
to their grocery stores. It should be pretty rough, but as I think you can now gather, it's really
Honestly, I didn't even think about the excised problems that would be caused by dynamic pricing and like groceries and stuff like that. Now I'm kind of like solidly coming into the camp of this actually shouldn't just be frowned upon or not liked. This should be probably illegal, because I don't think that you should be able to dynamically price food products. That sounds dystopian to me.
no surprise that Stop Killing Games would want to work with a guy like him, with the interests that he has. But as they put it, it does actually go further up than that. Stop Killing Games' new EU
I bet he
rep,
plays games.
Moritz Katzner, confirmed that he was collaborating with Ward on the drafting before handing it off to the Stop Killing Games US team, who would continue to work with Consumer Reports. So,
Okay.
that's a bit of background. You may be wondering then, well, where actually are we in the legislative process here? It was filed February 12th, and it's had hearings through March and April. It still does
Okay.
have ways to go, I need to be clear about that. There's a
Right,
financial
so
review and then
is
votes
it
in the
out of-
Assembly and the Senate where it could be amended before it gets over the line. But as of now, the
Okay, so it's still technically in committee. Got it.
important thing is
To
it
pass
just
and
cleared the
re-refer-
Privacy and
re-refer.
Consumer Protection Committee and
Okay.
the Judiciary Committee.
Okay, wait. So is this all the actions that it's been taking? Okay, yeah. So read first time to print, from printer, maybe heard in committee. So it was heard in committee, referred to this department, from committee chair with author's amendments. Okay, so they amended it a couple of times, read in second, reaffirm, in committee. So they had, okay, so the hearing was postponed. Author amendments referred to committee. Okay, so they
So
haven't had a
it's
hearing
passed
on
a
it
lot
yet,
of
it
stuff.
looks like.
It's becoming increasingly likely that this could actually happen. So with that in mind, there's the obvious question. What is it that all of these groups have just approved? Though first, I've got an upgrade to my battle station that I'm so goddamn hyped about.
It's funny
from our sponsor,
because
Ugreen,
hopefully they
and
actually
here
read
it
this
is.
law
This
and have
is
a
the
good like
Maxi Dock
verbiage and
17
wording
1
to it.
Thunderbolt 5 dock. And it is a monster. It's also gorgeous, like the aluminium, the way it
I'm
catches
hoping.
the light, the colors. I love the warmth. It's gorgeous. It's just one of those pieces of hardware that I kind of love having on my desk. But there's also what it actually does.
Yes,
And that is
what does it do?
It's got 17 ports. There's Thunderbolt 5 running at 120 gigabits a second. And to give you an idea of performance, it can run a single
is it a
8K
DAC or
display
something?
at 60 hertz.
Oh,
or
okay, it's
dual
I see.
6K at 60 hertz.
Got it.
Absolutely wild. Now, for my workflow, it means that my NAS, display, all peripherals run through this while I can edit, move huge
I probably
files
will never
around.
be able to
And it's
use
even
something
got
like this.
a
I'm too
built-in
stupid.
M.2 NVMe slot that'll take up to 8 terabytes. And it's a properly engineered enclosure as well, so your thermals are going to be handled.
Also,
absolutely brilliant. Now, the total
like
system
chat's
power
not
is
having a good
240
day
watts,
today in
and
the
that
sense
means
that
my laptop
I don't
powers
think it's
everything,
working.
get up to 140, and then you just have loads more power to
usually
spare,
at least
put into
people
other
would
things.
said hello.
And the end result of
I'm
this is I've
assuming
got my
that
Mac Mini plugged into
it's
it at
probably
home, running
having a
as a
problem.
server, then one cable. Put
we'll
my
figure it
MacBook
out.
in, the whole workstation just
Sorry about that, if
whirs to
that's the
life.
case.
It's absolutely awesome. And you can check it out at the link below. I think Ugreen have absolutely knocked it out of the park with this one. This bill applies to any server-dependent game that is sold, quote, on or after January 1st, 2027.
Okay, so it is going to be for any server-based game, and this is only going to be for the future, so there's not going to retroactively apply. At least that's from what I'm doing. It's working. I've just tabbed out. Okay, good, perfect. I didn't see anybody say hello today, and I was like, oh, it looks like chat's not working today. That sounds about right. I was like, it's YouTube. That's how it works.
And except for post-life support under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, it breaks down into 2 periods. Those periods being before a game's official support ends and after the game's support ends.
Okay.
Here's basically the upshot. Before support ends, the operator has to give users a 60-day warning, both in-game and
Nova.
on the company's website. They've got to explain when service ends, what features will go along with it, what security risks there are, and in the bill's words,
I'm listening to this real
probably
closely.
the big thing for many of you listening, quote, how the purchaser can continue to use the digital game or obtain a refund.
Okay, so they have in there a provision that says you have to give an advance notice for when the game is going to go end of service. Okay, that's pretty standard. That's pretty good. I don't know. I think games usually do that anyway. And how the purchaser can continue to use the digital game or obtain a refund pursuant to the paragraph 2. Well, they're never going to issue a refund for it. Sorry, excuse me. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. But this means that eventually they're going to have to provide a way to be able to oh my gosh, I'm being attacked by sneezes. To use the product afterwards, because like I said, they're never going to issue a refund for this. So it's interesting because now, as a matter of law, at least in California, they have to provide a way to continue to use the product. Interesting.
Because
it's an interesting angle.
That is where this bill honestly gets real spicy, real interesting. So, after service ends, the operator can't sell the game anymore, and they're legally required to provide one or more of the following. Now, there's a few things here, but you know what? It may be dense, but it may also be rights that some of you guys over in the States will have, so buckle up and listen.
Well, that specifically enumerated a consumer's right to be able to access the purchase after the purchase has already become rendered not able to go online. So, because it doesn't outright state that the consumer has a right to that, but it says that the publisher is not allowed to deny you access to playing it, or have some type of mechanism by which one could still play it after the servers go down. So really there is a hidden right in there that they are clarifying a definition on, which is interesting.
Important. Okay. A version of the digital game that can be used by the purchaser independent of services controlled by the operator. So
okay, wait. So provide the purchaser with one or more of the following. So this is continuing from so obviously they have to provide a version of the digital game that can be used by the purchaser independent of the service controlled by the operator. A patch or update to the purchaser's version of the digital game that enables its continued use independent of the services controlled by the operator. Or C, a refund in an amount equal to the full purchase price paid. Okay, yeah, so the option C is never going to be chosen, ever, which makes complete sense. I think C probably doesn't even need to be in there because it's probably never going to be granted unless it's in strange protracted situations. So basically A and B is what you're going to get, which is I think more than fair.
Basically, you get a version of the game that you can run without the servers being up. B,
Which
a patch
needs-
or update to the purchaser's
which needs to
version
be
of
done.
the digital game that enables its continued use independent of services controlled by the operator. C, a refund in an amount equal to the full price paid for the digital game by the purchaser. So those things do seem quite good, but there are some exceptions. This law actually would not apply to subscription games that tell users that their access is tied to their subscription.
I wonder how a company can use that to fuck with the consumer. Because the way that that is worded technically could fall under like cloud service games where you're paying like Xbox or something like that, where you can get a game from like Xbox Games Pass or something like that and play it, and that protects Xbox from having to provide for you a way to continue playing that specific game. But can that be utilized against Xbox for the subscription itself? So say you bought a game on it and you play it, so like Luna would be a good way of looking at it, is where you buy the game through Luna and you play it through Luna. I don't know. I don't know if you could stretch the definition for that or not, and I don't know if you could narrow it specifically for legal purposes. I'm surprised that they're tackling this in this law. I feel like they probably would have needed to pass another law.
Now, this does actually line up with the 2009...
Actually, what does the rest of this say? Any digital game that is advertised or offered to a person for no monetary consideration. Any digital game that is advertised or offered to a person that the seller cannot revoke access to after the transaction, which includes making the digital game available at the time of purchase for permanent offline download to an external storage source to be used without a connection to the internet. Okay.
Their
Makes
subscription.
sense.
Now, this does actually line up with the 2009 Final Fantasy XI precedent. There's other games though, so free-to-play games
Wait. What is the 2009 Final Fantasy XI precedent? Wait a minute. Or sorry, 2011. The Ninth District Circuit Court of Appeals has officially dismissed the case, ending its progression for good and establishing a precedent that most likely won't find itself under heavy contest. A deputy general counsel for Square Enix has called the suit baseless when it was first filed, due in no small part to the game's transparent statement that players would be required to pay a subscription fee. Hold on. What happened to that in 2011? What happened to Final Fantasy in 2011 in California court? 2011, two major developments regarding Final Fantasy in California courts were most direct impact. So on December 20th, 2000, the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed the dismissal of a class action lawsuit against Square Enix concerning Final Fantasy XI, Leong versus Square Enix. The suit was the suit was brought by players' alleged unfair business practices, specifically regarding hidden monthly subscription fees and the policy of deleting character data after long periods of inactivity. The ruling: the court found that Square Enix's click-through user agreement were fair and legal, affirming that the company was within its right regarding account policies, character data management. Okay, and then Brown versus Entertainment Merchants Association. Okay, that's just something that's bullshit. Okay, so there was a class action lawsuit that Square Enix basically won. Got it.
Final Fantasy XI. And
it was over
There's
subscriptions.
Other games, though. So free-to-play games are just out of scope of this, and the same goes for any game that you can just download and play permanently without server access. So with that in mind then, let's test this bill against a game that is actually hitting its end of life pretty much right now. And that game is Battlefield Hardline, which rather appropriately is set in LA. You know, you're going around doing your shooting on the Hollywood Hills. Now, on March 23rd, EA announced that the console servers for this game would shut down on May 22nd. So
the console servers got it.
No more DLC. That makes it a perfect
Might not be
example.
on.
So let's see how
is it on
this
PC?
game's shutdown
Probably not.
measures up against the letter of this new law. Okay, 60-day warning. Tick. they've done that.
Okay.
EA publicized this on their website, though it's unclear if there
They probably should have publicized it in the game, like had a pop-up telling everybody in the game that it's closing.
was a warning in the actual game. Let's be harsh and say that they're half right, but let's be real, it doesn't really take that much effort to put
Yeah,
a
it doesn't.
message in a game. Continuing on then, they've given players a clear date and a clear list of features that will end, but they haven't told anyone about any potential security risks or the lack thereof. And that is relevant. There may be no security.
So why do they have to give a warning of security risks is actually my question. Like, I get that they should probably give a warning of security risks in general and in principle, but like, why do we specifically have to enumerate at end of service the security risks that they might fall under? I'm curious about that.
Risks, but they should at least have said that per the letter of this law.
Sure.
So let's be harsh again and say that they are 2/3 right on that count. What about post-support then? Well,
I bet you
Battlefield
there's no
Hardline
post-support.
will still be playable in some form. You're going to lose your online features, and there's no bots-only mode anymore, but hey, you can play its campaign on consoles. Yeah, I'm sure several people are excited about that. Now, is that enough? That's the big question.
Right, because now we're thinking about it. Is it enough to be able to tell them that we are going to give you the ability to play single player offline, which is generally a thing that you can probably do with that game already? But is this bill going to cover the ability for players to make and maintain their own servers and be able to have the game connect to it, especially if you're doing it via like hardware console? Because I don't even know, because at that point, you might be going beyond the publisher and you'd have to be going to the actual console itself.
Answering it does take a little second because it does mean we got to go into the weeds. So the bill says a game has got to maintain, quote, ordinary use of core features, quote, consistent with reasonable expectations of a purchaser based on marketing and whatever information was available at the time of the purchase. Now, if you read
based on marketing, like that's going to be a huge sticking point because most video games are marketed with the implied rationale that you're going to be playing it online with and against other players, which that could get really noodly in the courts. That would depend on the arguments, and I think that there will probably be a lot of very, very interesting court cases that come up from this bill.
The PlayStation Store page for this game harshly, you do see that the only caveat about losing online access is basically one about needing PS Plus.
Right.
Because of course it's an online game in PlayStation. But the game is still playable, at least in part. So, what's the upshot of this? What's the upshot of our working example here? It would come down to whether a California civil court would believe that EA did right by their players. And I think you can see here that on paper, even if they, well, definitely could have been clearer on some of the details,
on paper
EA
they have
broadly
not.
has complied with an interpretation of this law.
Yes, they've broadly complied with an interpretation. However, it's still an interpretation that's open for legal arguments, let's put it that way.
No refunds are required.
At least in the way that we've been interpreting it. Because honestly, the bill's not completely done yet. We don't know what is going to be 100% in the bill. We don't even know if it's going to pass, like just to be fair and frank. But if it were to pass, and we are taking this verbiage as its final verbiage, I think that this is going to open up a lot of companies to a lot of class action lawsuits. And they're probably not going to be happy about that. So I'm going to be interested to see if there's going to be any corporate mingling in this bill.
This law,
like the more I think about it, the more I'm pretty sure that companies like EA and all the other like video game companies out there will probably be like, no, we can't have this bill going around, because it basically says to them directly, you must do this. And I think they'll probably want a way to wiggle around it.
Actually change anything for a game like Battlefield Hardline and its players.
I think it would.
Basically comes down to how harshly, quote, reasonable expectations gets read. Because remember, it's about the reasonable expectations of something.
They probably need to have a clarifying statement in the bill about what a reasonable expectation is. And I know that sounds like really weird to somebody who's not like, I would say, understanding of the legal process, but in order for them to be able to effectuate this law without it being a complete disaster, I think they need to clarify and define what a reasonable expectation would look like, or an example of it, so that there's a baseline by which this law can be kind of judged by in the courts. Because reasonable expectation could be from a publisher side, well, we reasonably complied with everything because they have the ability to play it offline. And the reasonable expectation from a player could be, I should be able to access a server in which to play online matches. Even if there are no online matches, I should be able to play online matches with a third-party server. These two things are both reasonable interpretations of the law, but they are in conflict.
One at the time when they're purchasing the game. So it's one of those situations where one phrase in a bill can absolutely just make
it changes the meaning of it,
entirely depending on how someone chooses to read it, and perhaps how well they are able to argue their read of it.
Right,
and all that,
which is totally why they need to clarify with a clarifying example.
Before we even get to the
which is probably what they're
there's
trying to figure out.
That we should
I could probably see that.
From any attempt to shift the US games industry, the ESA opposes the bill.
Of course.
Their concerns are basically the normal things. They argue that the previous bill,
why wouldn't they,
clarifying what is a license versus what is ownership, that basically should already be enough for consumer awareness. But they also fall back on one of their old arguments, which is this: that licenses limit how long a game can legally exist, meaning that forcing support changes at the closure of a game service would basically put way too much work on the company. Of course,
well, I would make the argument in contrast to that, where if the license doesn't expire until end of support is given, that means that end of support doesn't end during the 60-day period when they are giving notice. It ends after the 60-day period, which then would still imply that they have an incumbency on maintaining the game up until the point where it goes into service after that 60-day period. So they then still must provide the architecture by which people can access the reasonable assumption of purchase leading up until the end of 60 days.
Of course, many of us would hear that and say, boo-hoo. But on this bill specifically, they do actually have a point. You see, there's no carve-out for pre-existing games.
So, let's see. The following shall apply only to digital games available on first being the day the digital game operator provides service necessary for the ordinary use of digital game. The operator shall not sell, lease, or otherwise distribute a version of the game that cannot be used by a purchaser. Okay, well, I guess that makes sense.
Now, that means that every back catalog title that's still on sale come January 2027 would fall under the law. So your EAs, Ubisofts, all those companies would suddenly have to either work out refund plans, which would obviously be really expensive, or of course rebuild plans. And those would be—
Well, my question is does that hit retroactively, right? Because I don't see anything that in the bill says that you have to provide for things before, so their end-of-date service was before January 1st, 2027. And that's important, at least in my opinion, because this does protect things going towards the future, which is absolutely what we want. But in it not being retroactive, and I can see it legally being fair that it's not retroactive, that they're not going to go back and, like he's saying, rebuild games. That is from what I'm seeing.
Rebuild plans for games that they shipped a decade ago, right? So that's going to be kind of tricky. Now, Stop Killing Games'
that is going to be tricky,
has
but
always been that if you develop with end of life in mind from the beginning, this is basically a non-issue, right? You're not going to have some crazy big cost because, well, you would have anticipated whatever the technical requirements of end of life would be.
It would just be easy just to switch it over, right?
First place. I think they've got a good point there. Now,
I think another problem with that though is like there might be some type. I don't know anything about coding or anything like that, but I know enough to know that usually your like source code for your game is pretty heavily guarded. And I don't know how much of the source code you have to interact with in order for it to go towards servers and server connections, but they might have to hand over some amounts of that. And it probably is reused in a lot of other games, especially ones that are using the same engine. So they might not want to give it over because of that reason. And I could see an argument for that. I really could. So I'm kind of a little bit torn on whether or not they need to provide the architecture in the game to connect to third-party servers, but I think they should as a player, as a consumer.
Obviously, as time goes on, technology can change, and that could change end-of-life stuff, even if end-of-life was considered at the beginning. But the big thing with this law is it basically being retroactive, and
Okay, so it is retroactive,
carve-out
okay.
for games that basically are just sitting there in back catalogs. So even though they've got a
Like, I've got a couple of games in my games library that I'd, obviously like to play that didn't technically go into service, but are no longer, well, they went into service in the fact that like the company is no longer supporting them. And like a couple other games where it's just like, this game just no longer exists, which would be fun to be able to play some of the ones that, aren't playable anymore. But that would definitely be a big undertaking right now for those companies. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where we land, I guess, on a legal interpretation of this.
Point, you do need to remember that the ESA will always try to take up these oppositional positions, right? Because any change at all is a risk to them. And I mean, we know it's a risk. You know it's a risk. I know it's a risk. We may think it's a risk that is completely fine for the ESA's members to deal with.
Modern gamers can have a lot of different services, e.g. for matchmaking, so it
and of course
also gets messy. It does.
The one
like it really does have a lot of different like even sometimes with single player games, you have to connect to a live service, and like including but not limited to like anti-cheats and stuff like that. Like I don't think anybody's asking for them to maintain the anti-cheat because that's a subscription based on like the game developer's part, which is completely fine. I don't expect them to maintain an anti-cheat because when they're handing them over to the community, that would be like due in part to community moderation. But there are a lot of different interplays of services that make the game function that no longer would make it function unless you provide for support infrastructure for that. And that might be a lot of money out of pocket for like a third-party developer or a third-party server. So I could definitely see it getting incredibly and hyper messy because it's like we're talking about like, not only do you now have to talk about the game's publisher, but maybe even the developer of the console in which it's being played in order for it to be able to connect to a third-party server, and whatever money they need to pay out for that to utilize the server infrastructure or even utilize certain parts of like that hardware. It's like, oh man, holy shit. Tons of games have dedicated server softwares and private server implementation. It just has to be planned to work well. Yeah. Like, I think that's definitely what he's saying. And I agree with that. Like, if you plan for it for the beginning, it works definitely well. But once you start saying that you have to go back to games that didn't originally plan for it, it gets, that could get really tedious and could be really, I don't know. I think they should do it because I think that's the right thing to do. But I could see an argument from their perspective saying, hey, we followed the law and now we're being punished for following, quote, following the law in retroactivity. So like I said, I'm not torn on this issue in the sense that I want to see these games come back, but I'm torn on the issue because I don't know if it's completely fair. And that's kind of like where it ends. So it's like I have a lot of thoughts, but yeah, that's definitely a good point, Mark.
Really would be tricky is the
By the way, welcome to the channel.
Enforcement piece. That's one they'll likely be challenging during legislative review, and
yeah, this shouldn't be in the bill. This is gone. Like, that's just going to be out there because nobody's going to provide a refund for this. Like, this is a complete non-issue because they're never going to give you a refund. So even if it's in the bill, like, it's never going to be used.
Again, after should the bill pass. I mean, telling a company to either rebuild or refund their customers is all well and good when we're talking about an EA or an Ubisoft.
Right, but if we're talking about like indie devs or companies that are gone under,
non-live service games who would be subject to this type of thing as well. And to give you an example, think of Last Flag. Now I bring it up because it's an interesting case of where a law like this could be good or could be kind of bad, and in an unintentional way. So that's a game that came out recently, and whatever their resources are at the end of that game's service, well, a law like this may be the difference between whatever little amount of money is left for maybe paying staff and making another game, or simply just well, going bankrupt. Now, I bring that up not to be
Okay.
anti-stop killing games or to be against this bill. It is just to say that whenever we're dealing with legislation, we need to think, yes, about the first order effects, the things that we care about the most, the reasons why that legislation is coming into existence.
So is this one of those moments where this game didn't plan for end of service because they didn't have to do it, but now as an indie developer they would have to plan for end of service and divert money and attention away for it? I think, I don't know enough about this game, how much money it pulled in, whether or not that's going to hurt their bottom line, but I don't think that's going to hurt their bottom line too horribly much. I think that it would be fine, especially because like usually indie games have a lot simpler way of doing that too, instead of big corporate AAA games. So I don't know if I completely buy this as an issue, but I'm willing
We
to
also need
be
to be
convinced.
careful about the second order effects, right? About the externalities, about the knock-on effects, because sometimes you can still have well-meaning legislation that ends up doing harms
Sure.
in ways that maybe could have been hard to predict. So that's one little example. That being said, when I think about the direction of travel here, I do think more consumer protections is certainly a good thing. And if we're
Agreed.
being realistic, this law is not reaching the public without heavy scrutiny.
Well, as far as I'm aware, from what I read on the schedule, it doesn't even seem like it had a hearing yet. They're still in revision parts of it, which sounds good because, like, what are these connect? So server connected. So they that's actually interesting that they changed server connected to digital, which is more broad. Usually it prunes updates in support period, ordinary use. I don't know. This is going to take me
That's
forever to
already
read through that.
happening. Now, if it does reach the public,
not gonna read
then
through that.
It will likely be challenged in both local and federal courts as well. And that's going to mean
Who
years
reads?
of fighting before anything really changes here.
Oh yeah.
That is, of course, if it changes at all. Which could leave you thinking.
I wouldn't expect this to be passed until like probably 2027, honestly.
The legal system. It takes
Maybe
such a long
2028.
time that I may as well just stop caring what's the point of any of this.
Yeah, we won't
Well,
see this until
we
we're
can
like
talk a little bit about
until
what the
5 years
point of
out.
this is. This bill may not be the slam dunk consumer rights extravaganza.
No, but it builds
that
a
some people
foundation
hope
for sure.
I'd say it almost certainly won't be that. It may not stop companies from turning off games and leaving players with half of what they paid for, especially because of what we've covered.
Just adding what I said with Last Flag, giving a sunset notice. They've said their final update is to add player-hosted servers and easy customization of game rules. Well, there you go. Yeah, so it's like that's what I was trying to say. Is just like this law will impact, indie developers, but I think indie developers generally and probably like nearly at a 90% rate will in some way provide the architecture for them to be able to continue to be played. They said that 4 days ago, so we probably didn't see it. This game came out 2 days ago, but I think I can agree to you where like he probably hasn't seen it yet. And it is still a good point. I will say that he does still bring up a good point that there are going to be down the line effects on people who this was not supposed to affect. But my counter argument to that is in general, in like the 90 percentile, indie game developers and the people who would be second order effects of this usually already can adhere to a version of this bill just in what they already do. So I think I think the second order effects in that direction are a non-issue because it's already kind of standard industry practice along video game companies that are not AAA.
Now is likely the best version of this bill before it's altered with amendments or watered down through the legislative process.
But
Which, probably will happen.
If we're lucky, lobbyists don't get their hands on this. If we're unlucky, lobbyists get their hands on this and we get a watered down version of the bill, which could be used for creating more precedent down the line.
But it will still set precedent. It will still inform the direction things are going in. That kind of does matter. It's a little bit like how the main bill we're talking about
Remember,
today actually builds on...
all things in law are not the immediate effect. Everything in law is building for the next step a decade later.
The earlier one that we talked about, what, 2 years ago? The one that was about licenses versus like purchases that kind of led to, Valve making that clear in the Steam checkout. It's the kind of thing where that progress and that precedent does actually open the door for more legislation. And even outside of California, well, other states could pick up similar ideas. And given California's global weight...
Well, to give a perfect contemporary example of this, it's the same thing as the bill that's going around in the middle, like the middle of the United States, where there's a loophole in the guns rights, some type of gun rights charter or something like that, where it says that private sales, but not sales from the government, because the government could sell automatic weapons, and it doesn't say to whom it has to sell them. So the loophole being is that the government can sell automatic weapons to private citizens. And that's another way that the law is changing with precedent. So if you are able to pass that law, then you can change the law a decade later because it's already common legal practice. And that's what I'm trying to say is a perfect example of this. You can find any number of them, but there's another major one happening in the middle of the country right now that it's not about, like I said, the immediate effect. It's about in a decade, where will the law be interpreted and what will happen?
Well, precedent set there does not stop at the state line. This is not perfect.
Oh yeah, and going on to that, it's going through multiple states.
That's actually what progress kind of needs. So often we think that progress is going to be this magical thing. We all have some bill, some law, some politicians, some whatever it may be that we kind of fight for and we want to get them in or get the thing passed or whatever it is. And then, of course, you wake up the next day and very little has actually changed. Maybe within 1 or 2 years, very little has actually changed.
Decade.
But if you change your time frame to be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you do actually see that.
Wow, it's almost exactly like what I just said.
Change compounding. You do see how one bill kind of set up another bill, and while none of them are perfect, it ends up being a bit of an improvement. I know that's not the most
iterative
crazy,
change,
exciting thing, but you know what?
It's the only way to do it.
It is actually progress. The type of progress.
The alternative is somebody directly telling you this is how it is now, and nobody wants that. It does
seem that Stop Killing Games is actually making progress there. Today, we talked about it in the context of California, and very recently we talked about it in the context of the EU. And if you want to see just how, well, warmly the EU seems to be receiving a lot of their thoughts and their advocacy, well, you should check out this video next.
Okay. Well, that's good news. I'm glad that California is kind of like taking some steps in that direction. It's definitely one of those things where, I do like to give California the props for some of the like consumer protections and some of the laws that they start, because I think some of them come from definitely a good spot. Again, that is not to say that I don't have problems with other laws in California, but at least in this direction, I'll take the W from them, because I think unanimously and ubiquitously starting the conversation on this is good. So good for them. All right, let's see what is happening with Stop Killing Games. So Endymion is going to be covering, this literally came like 2 days ago, something that happened within Ubisoft, and I'm excited to talk about Ubisoft because I really, really hope that we can bludgeon them into making good games again.
The battle for the ownership of your games is a never-ending push to ensure that everyone that is watching and beyond can have more control over the things that you love and that you buy too. Look, I think...
Again, I want to cancel license ships. I want to actually be able to make a digital purchase of a game and own the game as like an actual thing that I own. I would prefer to go back to physical copies, but I'm willing to make a digital purchase and say that I still have access to it for as long as, I live, because I purchased it. I hate digital license, but I understand where we came from on that. I think that everybody probably agrees with that thought process too. I don't think anybody agrees with owning a license to play a game. I think most people would say, I want to own the game.
The entire point is something like a
or
Stop Killing
media
Games
thing
is needed more than ever, even if the games these companies push onto us all want to even have less control than we already have on them. But now there's been 2 very big updates and then some smaller ones, so let's get into it. Firstly, Stop Killing Games just won big time, and it's pretty glorious. Okay, so this is from TechSpot. It's been confirmed that Stop Killing Games will now be officially backing a new Californian-based act that is being pushed back hard against the moronic "you will own nothing" narrative that these game companies are, well, you know, trying to actualize all the time. So
was it a huge W?
Well, there's a guy named Chris Ward. He's a part of the California State Assembly since around 2020. Before any of this really went down, there actually weren't, well, any laws in place to stop this sort of thing, which is why you saw so many games coming out. They would get delisted.
There were other laws,
companies could just steal your money and then run for the hills. So this new bill, which is being pushed, it's called AB.
So we're just going to be recapping what we just watched. Got it.
Demands that are, well, being pushed into reality.
Are we going
Firstly,
to have?
AB 1921 would require,
because like I'm curious about like what Ubisoft, because I know Ubisoft's had some major news
who play these games.
Not too long ago.
Is a good example of this, of when that game will be having its end of support happen, which, yeah, that seems reasonable. That's then the next part where this same bill would then force American-based companies here, which is a lot of big companies, as you know, to make actual tangible commitments to allow for long-term support when
it doesn't make them have to make a commitment. It tells them in no uncertain terms that they must provide for something, which is, it's different because having them make the commitment to it is like telling them, okay, you have to at least give a try to this, and there's some room for leeway there. But this specifically says in order to sell a product like this in our country, you must provide the architecture for this. It is stated very clearly, for now, stated very clearly in the bill.
It comes to server-connected video games as well. This is just another way of saying that games that require the internet to function, which in today's age is, well, a lot of them. So
yeah, most of them, unfortunately,
would now make this mandatory, meaning that any game that is going to be taken offline in the future will have to have a backup solution to ensure that the game is still playable to some capacity
still playable to a reasonable degree at time of purchase.
For whoever, right, is paying for the game or wants to play it still. And another demand of this bill is that companies would not be able to sell their games that they have already planned to take offline within 2 months of that end of service date, which has to be publicly disclosed to everyone. This means for games like, let's say, New World.
That's actually, Amazon, that's something new too. So it's like they're not allowed to sell it leading up to the 2-month period in which it is end of service, which I think is good. I like that idea. However, I do hope that if this bill as it is gets enacted, I hope that they do allow for purchasing of copies if people do want to participate in the game after it has gone into service, if a game gets revitalized by something. So like, say there's like Call of Duty is a good example, the Modern Warfare games, like there, or even the Dark Souls games. I think that would probably be a better example, because every year, at least from what I can see, every year there is a return to whatever the place setting is day that's usually organized on Reddit, loosely organized, of course, but like return to Yharnam, return to Lothric, return to Lordran, and they all, like, everybody starts new characters on those days. They all play like new characters and do the whole Dark Souls PvP invasions just to keep the game's community alive, which is really cool. I really like that. But I'm wondering if something like that would be possible under this if they're required to not sell the game afterwards. It's crazy that we would even have to legalize something like this. Well, the reason why we would have to legalize something like this is because we have to enumerate the rights of the consumer in this instance because they haven't been under litigation. In order to, like I said, try to find some way to enshrine it into law and make it not a matter of interpretation and make it a matter of fine print law is what we're trying to get to the bottom of, which is obviously a reasonable person can look at it and say, this should be how it is. But we're not talking about reasonable people. We're talking about in stone laws, things that are not thinking, breathing organisms. So I remember when being a good person was just a thing you did. But that's what I'm trying to say is there are reasonable arguments on both sides, and one side has the absolute monopoly on the utilization of their software. So in order for us to be able to pick apart and figure out where their monopoly ends and our ability to control it begins is by enshrining into law in no uncertain terms where that line is. There will always be room for interpretation for it, but because the law is the way that it is and it is a red line, we have to draw that red line first, and we've been sleeping on that, which totally makes sense because obviously this is a new medium.
Really good example of this. If you remember, that's an MMO that had all of these players. Then Amazon
By the way,
announced that New World was going to go offline forever in 2027. But they also conveniently hid this information from their players and began pulling pro-consumer moves out of nowhere to just ensure that people would still buy into the game. Amazon, for example, gave away a free expansion for New World, and that built a lot of goodwill.
So we live in a society governed by the rule of law, so we need something to rely on, hence the creation of seemingly obvious things. That's what I think is a good point, is the law just restates what is obvious to the layman. But the layman doesn't understand in general or in part legal language, because legal language has a little bit of nuance to it that kind of goes nearly in opposition, or I would say in contrast of what our expectations are. And that's why it's important to at least try to understand what the law is saying, because if it says something very like I was talking about in the last video, I don't know if you guys caught that, but I was talking about there was a reasonable expectation of service being provided for them that is what one could reasonably expect based on marketing. We have a problem because reasonable expectation is now the problem of the law, where it's interpretation and can be interpreted by a consumer and by a developer as two completely different things that are in contrast or are in part in contrast. So then the litigation is going to become, what is the bar of reasonable expectation? Now, you and I both know as consumers, as we look at it with our thumb out, going, this is not reasonable, this is reasonable. We understand that. But in order for the law to be able to be effectuated, we need to have a very clear point at which it is and is not reasonable. So there needs to be a case study, which would be legal precedent, or enumerated example within the bounds of the actual framework of the law by which we can compare to. And that's where that's where this bill is trying to get to. And that's going to be very vastly different from person to person, because by the nature of people and who they are. So if the law can reach something that's even somewhere of a middle ground, we've already made progress. And like I said, law is iterative of something going to be changing a decade down the line. So any win that we get in this direction is a directionality towards getting to a point where the law actually effectuates what one wants. Not to go on a tangent or anything like that.
People likely bought the game to try out the new expansion, right? They bought some cosmetics from the store as a thank you. But Amazon knew all along that
they were going to cancel the game.
In years anyway. So they just did this to, I guess, make as much money as possible. So the free expansion wasn't really free in New World.
No,
right?
It was just get more people to play the game.
Fishing rod to just get more people to bite, so they could just, make more before the lights got turned off. Well,
and with this law, this would be. This practice would be releasing a free update like a month or two before the game goes into service. It's just like, imagine now you can't do that because now you're just trying to get people to purchase your game knowing that it's going to go down. We also live in a society where some folks try to take advantage of what the law doesn't explicitly say. That's why when you're enumerating the law, you have to be very explicit about what's happening. There's always going to be people like that, and there's always going to be loopholes because there's nothing that's made by human hands that is infallible. It's just about then starting to make the legal precedent afterwards cover up the infallibility. Skin manufacturers should not have tell you to use the skin to assist in childbirth. I mean, skis. But true. At the same time, you still have to enumerate as much as you can, because there are going to be strange people out there that try to use the law in a way that is in bad faith.
under this new bill anyways, which would affect Amazon, obviously.
Waiting law patches. Yeah, I can't wait for the next patch of California law to come down.
Not be erased,
it's going to be a wild patch.
2027 as initially intended. Well, hopefully anyways. Instead, it could go offline, sure, but the game would then need to legally allow the game to be played by users, even if it meant turning the game into like a single-player standalone game instead. Which personally,
there are a lot of MMOs that did go end of life that the community got a hold of and still play, but
take that game. All of its content,
I think they probably definitely should hand New World over to
entirely, include all the cosmetics.
They should hand it over to their community. Now the problem is now you have to ask Amazon to hand over what essentially is their like video game architecture. I don't know if you're going to really be able to do that unless a law forces that.
That were in that store as unlockables in the game for the players to use, and they could just release New World as a standalone single-player RPG game that people can play and explore
they probably could
want to. And it would also be, in theory, bursting with content like crazy, given that, well, yeah, it was an MMO before, obviously. That would not only be a win for the consumers who bought New World because, well, they get to keep playing the game that they love, which is great, but it would actually also open New World to a, pun intended, new audience that Amazon can then explore, possibly turning New World into a, single player franchise instead of being an MMO one. It would just...
I just don't know if they want to do that though. Like, I can understand why they just want to cut it loose because, like, obviously I think they're probably bleeding money on this project, which makes a lot of sense. So telling them that they have to change it over to a single player game, whereas would fulfill the contract of whatever this new law is, I don't know if they necessarily need to do that unless they want to continue to make money off of it. I think that just being able to provide the architecture for the community to get their hands on it and make their own servers is enough. Although if Amazon starts putting money into lobbying against this bill, I am afraid for what the bill might become at that point. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but we'll have to see where that comes from.
Just be a big positive
or see what
around.
happens.
Amazon gets their good PR, New World fans get what they want to, and you get to sell the game with all this content back to people as a standalone premium release, which will just, make you more money. I actually hope that more failed MMOs or gacha games, free to play, whatever, do the same actually too, because these games usually have so much content, so why just go offline?
True.
Why not make it all into a premium game where the content is already made? Because you got...
Honestly, I am a big fan of making all gacha games premium games where you just pay a amount of money, you get access to all the content. I very much dislike gacha systems. It should be, but unfortunately they see a lost opportunity as theft. Yeah, I could definitely see that. By the way, everybody who's new joining here, my chat does have a bit of a delay because I'm a bit of an idiot and I don't know how to fix that. So sorry if it seems like I'm getting to your comments late. I'm getting to it in the time in which they're rolling in. So I might have goldfish brain and forget what I talked about literally like 5 seconds ago, but I just want to let you know that I'm not missing it. It's just the architecture of YouTube is being the architecture of YouTube.
Made it already. Is it not better to make money off of that than
Figured
to
I'd let
shut
you know.
it all down, put all that content in some digital vault, throw the key away, and then start over on something new? Sounds kind of crazy to me, actually. Also,
there's another copyright reason why they do that too. The reason why they vault content like this is because in the future they might be hoping to, so like obviously their future planning, they might be able to capitalize on the IP itself. So that could be a reason for it. I don't really like that practice because I think that's kind of a little scummy, but I can understand why it exists. Like, existing in a world in which we don't have that would probably be a very strange world, so I can kind of see why it is. I noticed, I don't mind, if anything, I'll just add context. Yeah, no worries, no worries.
Massive waste of talent and resources too. But due to the nature of this bill, currently, it would only be able to work on newly released games.
We're working on that, by the way.
Backlogs already, as seen here. It would mean that if this bill were to pass, that any game released January 2027 and beyond would be affected by this change.
And as Bellular said, it would also fit retroactively, which that's the big issue. Because a lot of companies are not going to want to retroactively fix the games that they've already end of serviced and might not even have like the files for anymore.
Does that mean if you bought games that are older after that date, would that then affect them, but people that bought the game before wouldn't? You see where this kind of gets muddy a little bit, but still. My hope is that they can further cast the net wider so that even older games are affected by this too.
Yeah.
But the other component of this bill is that if for whatever reason a game company can't meet any of the requirements detailed in this bill, that they would have to, by law, be forced to fully refund the game and give the money spent by the user on that product back to them. No matter
Right. To offer context on that, what it says is it's an and or clause. They can either do all three of what the bill suggests or one or all. And I don't think that the refund clause is going to make it into the final bill, because and if it does, it's never going to be utilized, because once they sell you the product, they're always going to want to not give you back your money, which makes complete sense because they sold you a product, right? Nobody's ever going to opt into a system where they're going to sell you a license to something and then have to refund you all of your money after you've played the game, after it goes into service. So I don't think that's nearly as much of an issue as most people think that it is, because I don't think it's going to be used. I think it's just much more efficient for them to be like, okay, here you go. Here's the ability to utilize this software in an environment that is not curated by the developers.
Matter how many hours they spent in it or anything else, which that point for sure, that's going to anger a lot of game publishers, because
that's why I say it's probably not going to make it into the law.
They would have just wasted their money pretty much. Gee, it's almost as if you shouldn't be making the sort of games that can just, up and disappear one day out of nowhere. Now, should you guys? Maybe. I don't know. You should make games that don't need 1 million people playing it constantly every single day, or it'll just shut down and explode. But that's kind of the entire point of this, isn't it? It's sort of like how you see people online obsessing about the Steam player charts of whatever game, and people go, why do people care about the player numbers?
Well, because they don't want their game to die.
They do matter. Unfortunately, they matter a whole lot more than you think, because before, if a game came out, not many would play it. But it would still be fine for you, because you could still play it and enjoy it whenever you wanted to. But now if some online game doesn't have a thriving community 24/7,
they don't have any content.
Gets to play it.
So like the reason why, and you completely understand why, like kind of innately why people care about player counts, but to enumerate it, it's if you have an online multiplayer game that specifically focuses on multiplayer, the other players are the content. And if you have a low population of people who are the content, or at least impart the content to your game, then the game's not worth playing, and you kind of death spiral out of relevancy. And that's why people are obsessed with player counts, because it's an easy metric by which people to gauge the viability of the content of the game. Now, that is to completely ignore the fact that there are some games, or a lot of games out there, that could have a dedicated 10,000 player base and be completely fine. Like that could just be how it is and how it works, and you don't need millions of players. And that's why player count kind of gets a little muddy when you're really talking about it, but it is indicative of the health and the experience of the game. Moving creates life in a game, at least for me. It does. Moving does create life, and it also creates life for the developer, especially if they've got a bigger pool of people in order to sell cosmetics to. Even though usually it's a very small percentage of people who are keeping a game afloat with the amount of cosmetics they produce or purchase, but it does indicate the amount of content that can be provided by other players, which could be a selling point of the game. I think it if it does make it into law, the intent isn't to be for it to be used. It's a consequence if they don't offer an alternative to the following players to make private servers at end of life. Right. Then that's exactly why I'm saying that it probably won't even make it into the law, because most people aren't going to want to. Most developers aren't going to want to offer a refund, and even if it's never going to be used, it's implied in the law already that the refund would have been issued in other existing law.
Kind of messed up.
At least that's how I kind of like have seen it.
Why do you think so many people are obsessed with Marathon Steam charts still? Is it partly to be annoying and make fun of Marathon and Bungie? I mean,
yes.
Sure, yes. But is it
that
also
is a big part.
Marathon's longevity and your access to even being able to play that game is dependent on whether there is enough of a community to keep the lights on in the first place?
Right, and we literally just saw this happen with 2 games. We saw Concord and Highguard both go into service almost immediately after they launched. And I wouldn't even say that Highguard was doing like too bad in an abstract, where they released, obviously they spent a lot of money, but they had a plan, they had a continued plan, and a lot of people said it was an okay game. and they had a consistent 400 to 500 players. Now, that's not a lot of players, but that's still enough to make a viable game with matchmaking work. Like, that just is. There's enough players to make the game somewhat work. But obviously, it didn't bring in the money, and it wasn't the experience that they were selling. So it makes sense. That's why people are, obsessed with these player counts, and that's why people are worried about Marathon.
It's just, that's like a very backwards, almost insane way of making.
Right now, Marathon's like hanging around like,
but that is what AAA
10,000 players, maybe 15,000 players on a good day.
The one who gets taken advantage of, because you can't even play the game now, and that's messed up. It's awful, actually.
Yeah.
And it's why I'm also against this sort of thing, and also why Stop Killing Games needs to succeed the way that it is right now. There are some loopholes in this bill, AB 1921. However, for one, this bill excludes games that are subscription-based or free-to-play, which means it still allows the companies out here to, well, get away with a lot of things.
And I kind of agree with it, because this should just be mostly focused on like the physical aspect of the game. So for subscription games, I think those will probably be in a different legal category. And after those go end of service, they're probably going to require the games to have some type of way to resurrect or bring back the game, which in general, a lot of MMOs already do that. A lot of subscription-based games, as far as I'm aware, also do that. It's just probably a different law will be needed.
Killing Games did, however, show support for this bill by Chris Ward. It originated from this Reddit post, as you can see here on screen. But then when you scroll down, as I can highlight right there, yeah, Stop Killing Games is aware of Chris Ward's bill, and they fully support and are aligned with him. So this is yet another potentially
huge W
nuke of a bill that could force companies into compliance with what Stop Killing Games is standing for. It has holes, I admit. Again, it doesn't affect free-to-play, which is obviously something I do think they need to rectify.
Actually,
a lot of games, because
that is going to be interesting, because free-to-play games are kind of in this weird part where you don't have to pay any money for them. So really there's no license agreement in which you need a refund for, or you're being adversely affected in the monetary department. Now, if you purchase microtransactions in that, as with anything that's a microtransaction in any game, that's basically wasted money. That's my philosophy on that. I think a lot of people can kind of agree to the fact that I'm buying this for my immediate engagement and entertainment, but I don't expect to be able to access the product after the game goes away. It's just how it is. But it will definitely need some type of different adjudication or law, probably specifically for free-to-play games, because they'd be in a different category. Even if it isn't legislated, there is a laundry list of games from Ascension to City of Heroes that are hosted by fans of the old ways. Yeah, no, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of ways in which those games already come to private servers, and it would be difficult to make a law if that's already kind of the standard practice. I don't know. I'd have to see I'd have to see a good example of a subscription-based game that no longer exists that isn't playable, in order for me to be able to see whether or not that would fall under this definition or not. But I definitely think they probably need to make a new legislation. If they're purchased skins, e.g. League, they have an obligation of access, I'd argue. But if League dies, I'd expect private servers to exist. But that's what I'm saying, is the obligation of access is no longer there after the game itself dies, because I think you purchase it with the full intention, or rather the full legal understanding, that you do not have access to this after the game goes under. Because I don't think that you could have to require the game to give you your purchases after the game has already gone end of service, past the initial purchase of the game. And we're not talking about an initial purchase with a skin. So at least that's what I'm thinking. Because anything else that you buy in addition to it wouldn't be considered the game. It would be considered parts of the game in which that you bought for other purposes. You can make that argument for games as a whole, though. Because like, you don't have to make an initial purchase for League of Legends, although you did in some cases, but in that sense, it should be very clear that you are buying an access code rather than a game. I think they make that very clear in their terms when you're making a microtransaction, as far as I am aware. And the price should reflect. Well, the price reflects what people in the market will pay for it, right? So if people are willing to pay $10 for a skin, then the skin's going to, if the amount of people that are willing to pay $10 for a skin is where they want the target for that skin money to generate for, then it's $10 for the skin. And that's just kind of like
games, as you all know,
how they run
big money makers too. And just because it costs nothing to play them, it doesn't mean that there aren't people out here spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on those sorts of games when they play them too. Just look at any game, right? With gacha elements, character packs, that sort of thing, they should be able to.
At a minimum, for free-to-play games, this will bring a culture of forward-thinking relationships between players and developers, as well as expanded technical practices within the games themselves. It's a step in the right direction that's a step in the right direction in my opinion. Good counter, actually. People pay 60 because others pay 60. Yeah, a lot of these things are like market research to be like, what is the maximum amount of money that people will pay while giving you the product at the most access for people who will purchase it within the purchase point that we want it to be. And that's just kind of how businesses run. It is what it is. But I definitely think that at a minimum, adding more forward-thinking relationships between players and developers is a good thing. Like, it 100% will be. But I think for specifically free-to-play games and subscription service, we probably have to make a new law pertaining specifically to them, because I think that they're in a different class. Like, just in general, I think they're in a different class of games, because I think that you need to make separate adjudications on each of them.
Do simply because they're free to play? I don't know about that one, guys. There is an online version of this bill that you can view yourselves, by the way. Here's part of it on screen, but I will be putting the entire thing in the description box, so if you want to look at it yourself,
I would suggest reading that if you really are curious.
It details fully all the demands and more surrounding this bill.
A lot of it is like both redundant and citing other case law, so
AB 1921.
Which is important.
Again, this would only affect American bot games and companies, but given how much influence...
And it's probably not even the last draft. Like, this is like, again, it's still in...
relevant and noteworthy.
Still to have a hearing on it. They're still revising it.
Affects the rest of the world, and that is just real for not just games, but like everything. But okay, now let's move on to the second big story, which is
please talk about Ubisoft
than anything else.
Please.
So if you remember, or maybe you don't, this whole stop killing games thing began because Ubisoft decided to, well, screw over people when it came to The Crew. The Crew, if you don't know, that's a racing game which is open world, and randomly one day Ubisoft just announced that The Crew would be taken offline, and anybody who bought the game would not have access to it anymore, despite having, bought it themselves. This angered a lot of people, because it meant that not only was the digital game...
I think it's proven by Silksong they have a fan base willing to pay like fans of No Man's Sky, but they closed their price so that price, and that too was a boost to publicity and access. Yeah, no, I think there is a big difference between obviously a company that's trying to make money for sure, and a company that has a product that they have envisioned and that obviously is a passion project. I think that Silksong is probably an outlier example, and Team Cherry is an outlier example, because they themselves specifically want to be focused on the consumer side of games, because they are themselves also consumers of games. They want to set a trend in the industry and want to be like we only think that you need to pay $20 for this game because we think that's a fair price. And that is a special breed of human, in my opinion, that really sticks by what they believe their values to be. And it should be at every point praised and cherished, because not many people are like that. Now, moving on to the majority of people who will be trying to maximize as much as they can out of it, because that's how people operate, you're always going to be getting this pull and tug and pull between the relationship of how much we want you to pay versus how much you're going to pay. Both of them are sure the expectation, not the rule. But you get it. I do. Like I said, I definitely, the exception, not the rule. Like I said, I definitely do get that they are the exception. And I think that it's important that they're the exception, because like I said, they're doing what they believe to be morally justified and correct. And I think if they believe that, I'm willing to agree to that. But I'm not going to condemn regular market practices because it's what everybody accepts and still can be in some way justified. So I can see it from both sides. And I'm happy that they got their success. I really am. I think people probably would have paid more for Silksong. But I'm glad that they stuck to their guns and showed moral fortitude and did what they did, because that, in a way, endears them to pretty much everybody, to show that they are actually of a moral character and they're willing to stick by their moral character. And we need more people like that in the world. So I'm very happy with that.
That was going to be useless too. It also meant that anyone who bought The Crew or saw it on a store shelf were technically being sold at that moment a paperweight disc that, well, has nothing on it. You can't play it. So naturally, that story blew up. And of course, Stop Killing Games was then brought into existence because of it. But okay, what happened now, you're probably asking? Well, Ubisoft has given in officially. And well, it proves that we actually do have the power
what did
to
Ubisoft
change
do?
things if we just try. As seen here from Eurogamer, well, would you look at that? They added a new mode to The Crew 2. Wow.
Okay, so they added an offline mode to The Crew 2. Okay, huge W, guys. We did it.
Apparently impossible to do so. But now The Crew 2 also has what's called hybrid mode, as you can see in here, confirmed by The Crew themselves. You've spoken, and we've listened to the improvements.
Okay, now add it to The Crew 1.
With your feedback, the new mode is here.
Also true, the market operates
I love to see
on
that.
market value,
So
opportunity, publicity, and so on. Capitalism is blind to emotion, but emotion can fuel capitalism. Exactly.
Cars to now be used
I agree.
in an offline setting, which is huge because this was originally only something that Ubisoft allowed users to do when they were playing online. And in a game all about, racing and car customization, you can see why this is important to have made available. Ubisoft provided proof too, as you
They're all chasing Need for Speed's Most Wanted. I mean, listen, I'm not a car game type of person. I probably would never play The Crew or The Crew 2. I've never played. I think I played a Need for Speed on the PlayStation 2. Take that for what it's worth. But I can understand that we made it a positive step in the right direction in saying Crew 2 saying, hey, we're going to add an offline mode. Perfect. I'm totally happy with that.
See there, and yeah, you can save these.
Hopefully
now.
it's
That's
a
great to see.
example for the games
now
industry.
Everybody can just enjoy The Crew 2 however they want to. Ubisoft gets to keep their money, and everybody gets to enjoy what they paid for. How is this not something that the games industry does not want more of? You see how it takes a little bit of effort, I know, sure, but like the payoff is worth it. The people are happy.
I think
that's
mostly
doing it. And I love seeing.
I think it's mostly because the reason why they don't want people to do that, and I heard a very interesting argument from another video about 2-3 weeks ago, where they want to kill, or rather they want to disincentivize playing the first product, so like The Crew 1, by making it not able to be played so that you will play the sequel like The Crew 2. I'm not entirely sold on that line of argumentation, but I can definitely say that there's merit to the argument, and maybe if I were to see more direct evidence of that, like plainly in front of me, because right now it's speculation, but I'm willing to hear that as like a pretty decent argument as to why they don't provide end of service for some titles that are expected to yield a sequel. But there's something special about OG's Most Wanted and Midnight Club. I played Midnight Club, exactly.
Something positive like this coming alive. Like we
played that. I think it was PlayStation 2, man.
As of this video being
I remember
made
that game.
This is not available yet for The Crew 1, which kind of started all of this. But Ubisoft should probably make that a priority, but people in the comments are still not convinced.
Well, hopefully legally they'll have to.
In the comment section of that post, people are saying that Ubisoft is only doing this because of Stop Killing Games. Which, I mean, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Ubisoft would not have
done I have no good examples, no direct examples of planned obsolescence in games. Or rather, I guess,
parts here regardless. Like
planned trying to get them to buy the sequel, because it's not really obsolescence, because it's not going obsolete. It's just not providing, so it's turning the service off.
And we can will the right things into existence.
Because the game still works.
Sure, I know, give them criticism.
You just don't have access to the servers.
We should celebrate this either way. It is a big win. The thing is
it'd be obsolescence if they didn't update it for the new operating systems coming out, which is what happened with
but also we're getting closer to the
what's that
future
game called?
We will finally
Ashen.
own what we have bought, and that these companies can't just steal them from us whenever they want to anymore. In a weird way, it's sort of like a loop completing itself. Like games used to be owned by you when you bought them until they weren't, right? Like Super Nintendo, PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, whatever. You own those games when you bought them.
Oh yeah, I can still boot up my GameCube and play whatever games I have on it.
It is sort of crazy how we had to go through so much to just, I guess, kind of reach the same state we were in before when all this went down, right? Kind of weird, but it is what it is. But it is sort of insane to think that that's pretty much what has gone down. But hey, I think that's good either way. And the way this is all happening in the wake of PlayStation's viral DRM story, if you don't remember that one, which Ross Scott, the creator of stuff.
If people aren't aware, PlayStation came out with a new set of something happening in their back end that had a timer that timed how much time left in real life days you had access to the license of a game, and it was short. It was like 30 to 60 days. And when that was happening, people were like, wait, what's going on? So people have been saying, as far as I'm aware, because I haven't really paid close attention to that story because things are still developing for it, that they're going to put in a kill switch in a way for your game's license if you don't log into the PlayStation Network anytime between 30 to 60 days of you last playing the game, which I think they've said it was a mistake that it made it in there. There was no such thing, but some people have been theorizing that. I don't know. Like I said, things are still developing on that and jury's still out, but it does point in a direction, and that direction is looking very like, really, are we really at this point right now? Good point for legacy game servers. I've seen many, and Beyond is chock full of such things. Yeah.
Killing Games has reported on himself as seen here. That is not lost on anyone either. The fact that these companies will do everything in their power.
By the way, this is the guy. Accursed Farms is the guy who did the Stop Killing Games movement.
Halfway, but instead tear as much as they can away from you.
Sometimes legalese does have unintended language.
Think it will help them, but it really won't either.
I agree.
People will just start
a lot of legalese also
PlayStation due to that
changes
DRM
its
policy.
interpretation from decade to decade too. So
that the DRM problem is not as bad as others claimed recently too. As GameSpot reported, as you can see, PlayStation finally responded to the controversial DRM checks that had people potentially.
Yeah, like I said, April 29th, that literally happened nearly a week ago. Like we are literally in this as a news cycle, so I'm hoping that we get some more clarification by the end of this week.
Their platform. Here's what Sony told GameSpot. Players can continue to access and play their purchased games as usual. A one-time online check is required to confirm the game's license, after which no further check-ins are required.
So players can continue to access and play their purchased games as usual. So why do we have a one-time online check? Okay, I think that would be when you download the game from the services on PlayStation. Because in order to get a game on PlayStation, even if you buy it hard copy, I mean, I had to do this with a couple of games before I stopped playing on consoles. You get a key, or you get some type of code, or even the disc would be itself a code, and they'd have to download the game from PlayStation services. So that might be the online check that they're talking about. Which it's weird that they're calling it a one-time check and not just a download. But I definitely don't like the fact that we are moving very slowly into the you must constantly be having some type of online check-in in order to play a game offline. Because that's the point of buying a game, is maybe I just want to play it offline.
So this has quelled fears. But there are still many out there that are still mad that a check.
I think maybe quarterly people will drop interest.
Either way, it is good on Sony at least to just.
I think most people, when they see a one-time check like that, it makes sense because, like I said, it's probably a download. But I don't think people would be okay quarterly having that check, especially if somebody decided, listen, I can only play this game offline because I'm not in a place where there's internet for large amounts of time. In fact, I've got places that I go that have no internet access that, I'd have an older system at or something like that, because obviously I got to have something to play while I'm wherever that is. But if it has to have an online check, I don't want to have to bring my system home every 60 days or every quarter and check to make sure that I still have the game's license. That just seems like it's very ridiculous for most people to have to deal with. It's a roll call. That junk is wild. Also crazy that the delay made sense, right?
Have some transparency for once, but maybe don't take multiple days to allow such a big problem like this to fester the way that it has.
It's definitely
addressing it first, like right
quarterly
away.
Is like
just a thought.
insane.
I don't know. It's just kind of crazy that it took them that long when literally everybody was talking about this. But for Sony, it does get worse because, as Insider Gaming reported here, players might also be getting refunds following a lawsuit now. So the reason for this, as said here,
again, I don't think anybody's ever getting I don't think anybody's getting that refund refund.
Settlement against Sony. The class action lawsuit filed in 2023.
I mean, they did issue refunds for Concord, which is, I mean, that's good, I guess.
Insider Gaming then said more. As part of the settlement, Sony is required to pay approximately $7.8 million to all in the United States who purchased specific digital games through the PlayStation Network between April 1st, 2019 and December 31st, 2023. The settlement was officially approved on April 8th. So specific games that are affected by this reimbursement are WWE 2K17, 2K18, 2K19,
so
No
WWE
Man's Sky,
games,
Super Mega
No Man's
Baseball,
Sky,
The Last of Us Remastered, Until Dawn, NBA 2K18, 2K19, the Mass Effect Trilogy, Madden NFL 17.
What?
There's even more games, as you can see here, from
why are we
Jack
issuing these
Party
refunds?
Box games, whatever they're called, Limbo, The Witness, Okami HD, and so many more. Again, I'm going to leave a link to the full list in the description box because there's just way too many to list, but it's a lot of games.
Skullgirls mentioned.
However, one of the games on that list is Battlefield Hardline.
Okay, wait. Okay, so why are they issuing these refunds?
Is actually interesting.
Hang on, I'm curious. We're gonna do this now. Why is the PlayStation issuing refunds for games? I know I spelled a lot of shit wrong in there, but you're gonna have to deal with it. I spell really bad. Sony is issuing roughly PlayStation Network card to users following class action lawsuit alleging they were overcharged for digital games. Okay. So they're issuing it because they overcharged for games on the PlayStation Network. That's interesting. Very interesting.
Because that game is also...
If you bought Okami on the PlayStation Network, you apparently are entitled to a refund of that game.
If you don't know, going offline soon as well. So Battlefield Hardline, as seen here from Tweaktown, will be delisted on Xbox and PlayStation soon in May. So anybody who bought that game will never be able to play it unless they, I guess, keep it downloaded on their console. But when it comes to online functionality, that will also be taken
Honestly,
away too.
They probably should have like a third-party...
PC at least. But again,
like a third-party library, like the Library of Congress, that still has servers up for these games, because I think that would be important for preservation.
You lost access to even if you paid money for it. As Tweaktown says there, Hardline will be sold at $40 USD now, while having the option to unlock all multiplayer items.
We know that it's being ended of service, so this $40 is just like, dude, you're double dipping
in the game. If you just pay EA, $50 USD as well, which is, yep, that is real. In case you're wondering, Hardline will continue to be able to be played on PC online for its multiplayer and all that, but yeah, the console versions, those are dead. And this is again another reason why Stop Killing Games.
I said they should have that. Like, I think the Library of Congress should maintain servers for games, because obviously, like I said, this is a matter of preservation at this point. And they already do preserve games as far as I'm aware, but they're not able to simulate or allow access to the other components of certain games that they categorize, especially if it's got like a multiplayer type of deal.
Bill are being pushed,
which I think they should, because it's part of the game.
Now it's just another
game. That's like preserving a magazine without giving access to the pictures.
Added to the pile that you can never play on consoles, at least. But that's the problem, isn't it? Like, why are you going to buy a game if it can just disappear one day out of nowhere, like Hardline's going to be doing too? There's no preservation there. There's no backup. There's no offline mode. It's just gone now. But this just confirms why this is important, because it means that the access that you're paying for is not ownership. And that's why you're seeing this become a battle of legal grounds, because it has to. Which is why specifically that Californian bill is so important, because it needs to be made
preserve games as much as they are a cultural phenomenon, which is why Shrek is it's a library of chaos.
So yes, the rules are shifting, thankfully, but it's still not a complete reversal.
I think they preserve things like pretty much a lot of things too that aren't just culturally significant, or rather maybe culturally significant might be
I don't think it's enough yet.
Extended.
I think we need to go like as hard as we can possibly go when it comes to this, so that we can ensure that all games that you buy are actually owned by you when you pay the money for it.
Well, that's why I really want physical games, right? That's why I have been a very strong advocate of you should always be providing a physical copy of your game with at least the 1.0 edition patch on the disc, because I do not want to be playing a license for a game. I want to own the game when I buy it. And I hope that more people in the future understand that there is wisdom in being able to purchase a physical copy of something without the worry of it going obsolete. So like say the disc is bad in like 5 years. Like you should be able to whip that disc out at any point in time in the next like 50 years and play it. You think that it should be cultural significance for a barrier of entry? We have heroes like them for the rest. Well, I think the problem is for a private person or organization to collect something as a matter of history is fine, but also being able to have a public repository that is open to everybody at pretty much any level of access is also important, because the public should have a vested interest in preserving the history. Like I, as a taxpayer, want to be able to preserve anything that is produced in a media capacity and have people be able to go back and look at it, because I think that's valuable and important to the people. I think government should be able to provide a space by which historical preservation exists. Like it's great that public or private entities do it, but I think the public also should do it, because now you have options.
In saying that so many other industries have not, done this model, but when it comes to games, it's just normalized these days, which frankly
you also don't decide
because
cultural
it just
significance right away in all cases. Sometimes it becomes irrelevant far beyond its years.
You should have access to
That's
it
a good point.
you want to.
That does
It shouldn't
happen.
just be taken away because someone just doesn't think it makes enough money anymore, so now you don't
like
have
Dark
access to play
Souls.
anymore.
Dark
That's
Souls
insane to
didn't
me.
release
But this
to
is why
like a
more
huge amount of
games need to
people,
do
but
what
now
The
we
Crew 2 has
now
been
we
doing
talk
with its
about it
hybrid mode. Like,
with
sure, okay,
extreme
that's not
reverence.
perfect. But at the very least, it's a recognition of the problem that something.
A slight crazy idea for the future: restoring games without developer input using AI, which will use various sources from the internet, for example, tons of YouTube videos. I think I know what you mean by that, where if it's like content like in Destiny that was removed from the game and now considered completely lost, I could see wanting to reconstruct that in that type of way. I don't know how effective that would be. Hopefully that would be good. Hopefully they probably could do that once AI gets a little better. But it definitely would be difficult. I wish, like, when they say that it doesn't exist anymore, I very much disagree with them on that. I think they probably have access to the files somewhere, or somebody has them on some hard drive. So I'd be more curious about whether or not where that's at. That's a good point. I still hold that for the government. It should remain mostly legislative, but history isn't made solely by law. Exactly. But like, that's what I'm saying. Cause they have like a bunch of other things that are preserved in the Library of Congress that are not just solely law, which is important. Like I said, it's a library. It should be preserving as much as everything as it can. It would be good for everyone to have a repository for all things. Yes. A public repository is important. Because if it's private, then you can charge. But if it's public, everybody has access to it.
This issue has stayed in the background, as we all know, for way too long. At least now we are forcing a change. It is obvious that what you want versus, the guys in the suits don't really align, but too bad. You watch.
Well, not only that, but like that's how we found 2007 Skate.
Light on for a lot of these studios,
they had it on
these
tape.
Guys in the suits. Like this is...
Jagex literally found it on tapes. Computers at that time didn't run on tapes, but some did. It is phenomenal to me that they found it on a tape. That is, I don't think I can like express to you how funny that is, because like I know somebody who worked on computers when they were punch cards. So like that history of computing to me is like incredibly amazing. Like it's they found it on a tape, on tapes.
We're not at the end of
this. And it was like the full build backup of like the game. Like that's so cool.
story. I understand that. We're not even close, but at least right now, we are at a point where players are at least more aware. The governments are finally being forced to do something, and companies are actually responding to this.
RuneScape also held up Venezuela's economy. I mean, it still kind of does.
But it doesn't have to in this moment right now, because what is done instead is to do something else that's just as important, if you ask me.
Oh god, I remember Venezuelan gold farmers.
The conversation finally
buying RuneScape 12K.
And now that this is becoming
actually, I don't remember how much it cost, but
now it just can't be stopped, because the future of gaming isn't just about like what we play, it's also about what we're allowed to keep. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for being
Wasn't
here.
it a Ubisoft executive to say that I'll get them to pay for every bullet they fire from their gun? Thank you, Endymion. Thank you for the update on Ubisoft news. I definitely, like I said, I will beleaguer this point to the death. I will say it every chance that I get, and I hope that people take it incredibly to heart, where they say you should be able to own a physical copy of the game. Period. Sounds like Ubisoft? Exactly. It's phenomenal. Oops, I just don't want to.
Microsoft game.
No. There we go. I can't believe that we've made it to this point. All right, so this video has been making the rounds. And by making the rounds, I mean, like, obviously they're Timothy Kane, they're an ex developer. I forgot what they did specifically. But I know that his videos are pretty popular in gaming news circles. And it came out a while ago, about 4 days ago. I'm excited to get into it because having played video games way back in the day, in the pre-internet era, and I'm going to say soft pre-internet era because it existed, but not nearly to the capacity of what it was. I mean, I still remember Web 1.0. That should tell you where I'm coming from on this. But from the pre-internet area to the internet era to beyond, the way that people interacted with video games has certainly changed. I haven't really had the introspection to be able to put my finger on it immediately, but I know it's changed. So hopefully this will be able to help me put my words into a cohesive idea in either agreement or disagreement with Mr. Kane. But I want to see what his thoughts are, because I do like some of them. I also don't like some of them, but I do like some of them. So I'd like to see where he's at. Oh, that was really loud. Sorry about that. I brought up E.T. on Atari. I know what y'all on about. Yes. Listen. My dad had a prototype Atari. Was it an Atari? I think it was an Atari. No. It might have been something else. He had a prototype something. It was the one with, like, I think it was Atari, yeah, with Pong on it. You know, the one that came out with Pong. He played it for like 20 minutes, and then they put it in their basement and threw it out with a move. Because, and I'm going to quote my dad, I didn't like video games. I thought they were boring and weird. He's since come around in a way of speaking, but at the time, and when he told me that, my heart broke. I could literally feel it breaking. I spent at least like probably 3 full days of my life going through my grandparents' stuff in the prayer that it was there. And I couldn't find it. It hurt me so bad. All right, let's see what this is.
Jerry. Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about how the internet changed game design.
All right, let's go.
This is from a question from
By the way, if this is too loud, let me know.
Hope I'm pronouncing your name right. How did your thought process in designing and making games change, or maybe what adaptations did you see in general in making games by the industry around you with the advent of social media and video game streamers? To what extent?
All right, I'm going to make a guess that as soon as we made the transition more from games journalists to streamers that play games games became a lot more oriented towards the experience, the watcher experience, rather than the player experience, at least for AAA developers. That's going to be where I think the inevitable conclusion is. I think anybody with a pair of eyes can see. Brother man, it's like when McDonald's thought the internet was going to fail. I imagine. It was just a quirky fad. My grandparents had an Atari in their closet for most of my life. When the estate sale happened, I was not able to save it.
And how do developers and or publishers keep in mind how streamable are their current projects in development?
They're probably in the forefront of their
video game
mind.
streaming cannot be ignored as a sort of mostly free commercial and promotion circuit for a modern day game. So how do you guys manage this change from what making and selling games was only 10 to 20 years ago? 10 to 20 years? I'm going to go back 45.
45 years,
By the
brother. Brother, we're going back to the ancient times when the old texts were written.
When I talk about how it changed the design, it's not just the design of the games. I want to talk about how they were portrayed to the public and also how the public received them. So because of that, I'm not going to talk about multiplayer games because there was a big switch from LAN to client server for a lot of reasons that are beyond the scope of what I want to talk about here. But if you want to talk about how design docs changed over that same 45-year time period, I have a video that I'll link below called Evolution of Video Game Design Docs. And if you want to know how I felt technology changed,
Son alert the calls, but expect me in the VODs.
I have a whole
the Algo got a good one here. Y'all have fun. I hope you have a great night, and I hope that work goes well for you. I'll see you later, my friend.
So, this is a big question that was asked because there's been a lot of changes of the internet. What we called it. It was the Usenet, ARPANET, Internet, Web.
Web 1.0.
Online. It's just the net. And I want to start back in when I started, which is the early 80s. So I'm going to talk about all of the 80s here and
What was your AOL account name?
Part of the early 90s. Back then, you pretty much made what you wanted.
True.
I've called it the Wild West. There's a video I made very recently called Carefree to Careful. I'll link it below, where I talk about that. But
well, another big thing that happened from way back in the day to now is it was a lot smaller of a community with a lot more heterogeneity in the way in which they approach games and game design, because there were no rules or goals or I would say best market practices that guided the hand of the developer. And those usually serve in an abstract to be constraints on creativity. And what do I mean by that? Because a lot of people, when they come into a system that already has somewhat of a guiding principle behind it, it is easier to put themselves in alignment with the system, or rather the thought, the suspected system, to go with the flow because it works. And in a lot of cases, it does work. And in a lot of cases, it also does not work. So you kind of have to have an incredibly introspective, or rather maybe an incredibly ingenuitive person or personality type to come in and go against the grain of pre-established video game norms, or in any system, any norm. And a good example of this happening, again, we're going to bring up Dark Souls, is at the time that Dark Souls released was the perfect time for it to release, because it was an uncompromising experience that was made as the developer solely intended it to be, in a saturated market of how people thought games ought to operate. And in it being unapologetically itself, invoked the spirit of the original founding principles of how a video game, or basically video game developers, kind of viewed the games industry, because it wasn't an industry at the point. It was a hobby that people could do whatever they wanted into. If you go uncompromising into what you want to play, what you think is cool and what you think is a good idea, you will always have a leg up on the established norms and trends, because it will be something different, something unique, and something interesting. Even if it's a bad game, you will still have that bonus of having something unique, interesting, and innovative.
There wasn't really a net, so
True.
Everything was done in print.
And it was a lot also hobbyists.
and even whole walkthroughs printed in magazines and other printed media. But most people who played games just...
I mean, I still got my Kingdom Hearts strategy guide somewhere in my parents' basement. I literally was thumbing through it about 2 years ago. I could probably go find it.
Figured it out. I would say the majority of people who played games
I have it because I purchased it at Blockbuster and I wanted something to look at because I didn't own the game at the time. So I bought it because I was like, oh, I want to know what happens in the game and I want to play it in the future, but I didn't have it and I didn't play the game, or I didn't have the game. So I wanted to like live vicariously through the strategy guide.
To go get walkthroughs or reviews. They saw a game, they bought it, they took it home, they may read the manual while it installed, and then they played
game manuals, I remember those.
What was cool about back then was categories of games were really loose, if they were used at all. There were a few terms like role-playing games.
As I remember, they were very broad.
Sim,
shooter,
4X, although they didn't even really call it 4X.
I think they had shooter.
I just called it like exploration. Most games weren't categorized. You figured out what kind of game it was by looking at the back of the box.
Now there's a story here for another time, but that's the same strategy guide I got grounded over.
Shots.
Oh man, that does sound like a story.
That was a long time. That was probably a decade.
You'll have to tell me that one later.
Where that's how games were sold, and that's how games, they were sold physically, and people found out about them by word of mouth or looking at the game store. A lot
of people don't know this, but like in the indie game scene in California, a lot of like the games that we now recognize as very seminal works or like things that were very popular were passed around on like bootleg discs. They just passed them around like, hey, this was made, why don't you go ahead and play that?
Rarely printed media.
Imagine a time like that.
All of that started changing in the late 90s and the 2000s. The internet became insanely popular. It came from being something that I used academically. So suddenly all my friends were talking about it. All my friends were using it, and they were very excited about it. And they were like, did you know about email? Yeah, I've been using email for a decade. But now everybody has email, and everyone's getting email.
I had that conversation with other kids in my classes. Oh, did you hear about this new thing called email? I'm like, yeah, I have an email account. I have an AOL account. I had an AOL account when I was like, young.
Email addresses. The internet got so popular that people could easily find a guide to any game they wanted to play online. And game categories started tightening up. There was adventure games were separated from
I miss the demo mags. I do too. I got a PlayStation demo disc from some type. I think it was like a Game Informer or an IGN or something like that back when they did, physical media. I got a demo disc from that I played the shit out of. It was very fun, but I think it had Spyro the Dragon on it or something like that, or it had a Looney Tunes game. I remember it had a Looney Tunes game on it. Man, I'm really digging up memories now.
What this affected, what I did is I was starting to become more, it was more possible for me to have a say in what I wanted to make. I wasn't making games because other people said, here's what we're making this year. But people were like, hey, what do you want to make? And I put together some engines. I started making my games more complex, which subsequently made walkthroughs harder to define. I mean, what kind of character did you make? What choices did you make as you were playing? These all affected the walkthroughs. I remember when I could
imagine that being really hard because like a direct walkthrough is a step-by-step, because we're talking like transitioning from a direct walkthrough being a step-by-step, go here, do this, to, okay, well, they might not be playing with the same baseline tools as you. So saying go here, do this becomes a little bit more convoluted and might be in a different order. I could see how transitioning from that, especially as like a hobbyist mindset to an industry mindset, might be a little bit harder to transition to.
Asked me what I imagined the walkthrough for Fallout was going to be like, and I'm like, it could be really different. You don't have to go to these places in any particular order, and depending on what kind of character you're making,
you might not be
easier, some of them are harder, and what you do in those locations will be different.
Speech checks versus combat checks and stuff.
That was fun to me. Then starting, I'm going to say YouTube, which was February 2005. At that point, videos became very easy for people to share. Playthroughs were really easy to make and share.
All right, I'm going to say two things that's going to set people off down memory lane. The first thing that I'm going to say is, who remembers the videos on grainy camcorders of people recording their screen? And that was content on YouTube. And the next thing I'm going to say is a name. Unregistered Hypercam 2. I'm going to leave that floating in the air.
Find, which meant people could just watch a game being played and decide if that's what a game they wanted to buy. And if they were ever stuck, they could just look up a playthrough. Sometimes a playthrough of just that one spot they were stuck in. This trivialized puzzles because you could just type, Fallout Master How to Kill, and it would just lay it out. There'd be a video. Here's what you do. Are you good at combat? Do this. Do you have this particular...
To be fair, some of the puzzles in older games like that, I'm not like a puzzle type of person, so I can understand why some people were like, I have no idea what I'm fucking doing. Somebody give me help.
Or armor or weapons, do this. Or you have speech, do this. Do you have stealth, do this.
It's a natural consequence.
Nobody had to figure it out. They just look it up. So instead, I started focusing my games on what your character could possibly do.
Mm-hmm.
And then puzzles relied more on finding the puzzle pieces as doing them in the right order. So, like, the Master was a good example of it. It survives to this day because even if you read what you have to do, you still have to go do all those things. Mm-hmm. You just don't go in and go, speech 100, Master. So what I liked is it from...
I'm not familiar with this puzzle. I never played the original Fallout.
Items and using them to exploring all these places, learning about things, and then you could use them. Especially not just in combat, but in dialogue. Then the 2010s rolled around, and now
Unregistered Hypercam 2 is a thing that even we youngsters have experience with. So many good internet videos have it splashed on the top. I actually have seen some people just bringing it back as like a not a meme, but like putting it up there just for like the people who would know what it is. Oh my gosh, dude. I remember those times.
Oh. Those walkthroughs and videos online were starting to get replaced with influencers. I don't recall hearing the word influencer before the 2010s. What was interesting about...
honestly, influencer as like a concept definitely did come in around that time. I can kind of agree with that time frame. It's really weird because like the 2010s are like that kind of like ledge in my memory, in my opinion, where that's where the basis for what we are experiencing now became solidified, and we haven't really progressed in a significant manner since then, in my opinion, because everything can probably be traced back to the roots of around that area. I don't know, or around that time. I don't know if people agree with me, but that's how it feels to me. That feels like a correct statement.
These individuals is more than showing how to play games. They were actually recommending whether you should buy them or not. Differently than journalists. Journalists would frequently say, look at the game, look at the features, and it supports this, and it's very similar to this game, blah, blah, blah. And then they'd finally give it we're going to give it an 8 out of 10 because it was a little buggy.
I can kind of agree to what he's saying, where influencers basically have the power to tell their audience, go buy this game. Whether or not they do or do not directly state that. It's implied if they say, I enjoyed this game, I really like to play it. That's them telling their audience to go play it. Now, I understand the shift that he's trying to delineate is a lot of the games media at the time was actually pretty good, and it talked about other substantive things that the game experienced, but influencers weren't constrained by that. See, I can't agree or disagree because I can't remember 2010. Listen here, Sonny. I remember the old times.
But we like
that. Was my bad old person voice, by the way.
Influencers did something different. They were like, here's a game. I love it. It's for you. And let me show you. And then they show high points of it. Game print magazines, by the way, by the 2010s are already dying. And I think this killed them because why wait for a review when someone you already followed could just tell you about the game and whether or not you should buy it?
It 100% did. It 100% changed the way in which people got their games information. Print media has been essentially bludgeoned into irrelevance. And you can make an argument for better or worse. We're not making that argument. It is a fact of life that they have been bludgeoned into irrelevance by the advent of the internet and the ability to record videos to state something that could be otherwise stated with the written word. I think that it is a tragedy that we've lost good print media. And I'm saying print as in something that you can read, because I think that there is an art form to that we are slowly losing, because it's easier for somebody to digest somebody's opinion when you're looking directly at them or viewing them, essentially looking directly at them through a YouTube video. I totally get that this did happen. And I don't even know if it's right for me to want it to come back. I think that we just have missed something if we don't participate in print media.
Publishers responded to this by sending copies of the game to influencers and online channels just as much as they did to game journalists.
Yep.
And
probably more
that
so
kind of changed things because the journalists were at least, I think, sometimes...
Do we need to bring up the Cuphead clip? Do we really need to bring up the Cuphead clip about the journalist trying to make it through the tutorial of Cuphead? I don't think that they've done anything really to endear themselves to the gaming public, which is exacerbating a lot of other issues that games media has been experiencing. Again, that's a completely different cup of tea. I don't even know if he's going to be, broaching into this topic, but it does tangentially fill out why we're more in that direction and why games media has kind of plummeted. It's context to the greater picture.
It's trying to be objective. I don't think there's any objectivity. I mean, influencers themselves go, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. I'm here for the hardcore.
100%. Influencers are completely subjective, for better or for worse. And their subjective opinion obviously is going to inform people with similar subjective opinions whether or not the game is or isn't good. And unfortunately, maybe a lot of players who would have played a game, outside of the opinion of their favorite influencer might not play the game, which is unfortunate. And a lot of people who wouldn't have necessarily played the game outside of the influence of their favorite influencer might play the game. So there's a kind of like a give and take there. Although I do definitely think that it is very much more subjective than what games journalism should be.
So many designers like myself, we frequently thought, well, how is a certain event in the game going to look like when someone's playing it live or recording themselves playing it to put up as a stream?
Both.
We thought about cinematics, we thought about end bosses, we thought about unusual weapons you could get,
goofy things.
And because of that, we wanted it to look really good in video. And that was one reason like particle effects became a big thing, because you just didn't want it to go boom. You wanted a big explosion and wanted it to be pretty and colorful and all these things, especially in a clip.
Hey, mods. Calm down. You're both my favorite mod.
Because people will see that on some channel where someone's talking about the game and they see that clip and now they really want to play the game.
We don't need no mod on mod violence here.
About your game the way we used to think about interviews. When you went into an interview, you're like, okay, I got to have some sound bites ready so that, when I get quoted, I want to make sure the sound bite's quoted. Now it's like, what part of our game would make good clips? So
you can definitely see this kind of in the way that it goes. How Helldivers kind of went to everybody, right? It was definitely due in part to the cinematic grandeur of it, but the gameplay itself was fun as well. So I can see where he's coming from for this, because a lot of people will buy games, or at least maybe attempt to buy them based on how they look. Like, it's very true.
For influencers to show. And now we're in the 2020s, and many gamers don't even look to influencers for reviews. They look to influencers to be told how to think about the games. So people don't form opinions from the online video. They're handed an opinion from the online channel they're watching. What this means is I've seen reviews go from, this game has less combat and more puzzles and dialogues for you to interact with than this other game, to, this game is stupid and slow paced and made for casuals. I think you should skip it.
That's very true. Like, I definitely think that there is a lot of hostility in the way that people talk about video games nowadays, in so much as they are not technically wrong with their criticisms, because it's subjective to their experience, so that's how they feel about the game. But they are not providing what I would consider to be an accurate portrayal of the game. And that has been somewhat of a criticism that I've had of what most people how most people talk about games, because I don't think necessarily that a game being hard or difficult in either manner makes them good or bad based on that merit. I think that if you really wanted to be intellectually honest, which there are some people out there who are intellectually honest, they will talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of the games themselves, what they did and didn't like as aspects. But it's true that a lot of video game discourse has trended towards, I don't like this, it's too easy, as opposed to, this game has a lot of ease of access that makes it easy for me, but could be a draw to other people. I definitely think that that might be a better way of approaching it. But again, we're talking about non-professionals here. It's very interesting. This is a very interesting type of mentality from which this is being approached, and it's nice to see a developer actually talking about this in plain and in certain terms. Gonna head out. Have a nice stream. All right, have a good one. Have a great night. Have a great, studying for exams? I know you're preparing for exams, so have a good one. Good night.
That's a huge difference in how games are presented. But more people are going for that latter. They're like, I don't have time. There's too many games. Just tell me whether I should buy it. Tell me if it's for me. So they find someone they just like, and then that person's opinion becomes their opinion.
Right. That's what we were talking about earlier.
This has a positive side. It's easy to find someone who sides with your preferences, and therefore is a good guide for you finding new games. And I've talked about that. That's how I look for game reviewers myself. I look at their reviews for games I already know. And see if they're on the same page as you. If they like the ones I liked and didn't like the ones I didn't like, then I will trust them going forward on review. It takes a very strong-minded person in a way, or at least maybe strong-minded is probably the wrong word. A very aware person to be able to come away from a game that they didn't like and still be able to say, well, I didn't like this about this game, but it's still a good game. I think that probably happens to me with Blueprints, right? I don't hate Blueprints. Actually, I think a better example would be Hollow Knight, right? Because personally, I didn't like Hollow Knight. I'm not really a Metroidvania fan. That game's not for me. It's not a game that I would play, but in that same breath, I recognize that the game is good. A lot of people like it. It's well put together. And just because I am not the target audience of the game doesn't mean that the game is bad. Personally, I wouldn't play Hollow Knight. It's not for me. It's not made for me. I get it. But other people who like Metroidvanias, this game's going to be really good for them and they're really going to like it. So, and I'm not saying, of course, I'm not trying to say that I'm a strong, aware or strong-minded person or anything like that, but I try to at least somewhat keep that thought process in the front of my mind is this could be somebody else's favorite game if they just gave it a chance. And I try to, with my indie game streams on Thursdays, introduce a wide variety of indie games, some of which I might not even like, but at least try to find the fun in them because they could be somebody's next favorite game. And showing them for what they are and taking the entertainment and enjoyment from what they are, even as not part of the audience, is probably the most important aspect to trying to share games. And I think that is a good way of looking at it. Use of games that I haven't played yet. But the negative to this is more and more people seem to be abdicating their own judgment to that of people they see online. Outsourcing it. It's like, I don't want to think about it. You tell me what I should think about it.
And
I see that sometimes on this channel when I get multiple nearly identical comments from people, and I realize they're just quoting an online influencer. Sometimes it's a meme, but more often it's, oh, this influencer person said this.
I think a lot of times it's a meme, but for sure.
Now they're just quoting without any attribution in a comment.
That's a grander problem on the whole, but we're not going to get into that can of worms. But people do like to outsource their thinking because it's easier to do that. It less cognitive load.
Sometimes even when it doesn't apply, which just makes me go, are they understanding why the person said that?
No,
But
they probably don't. They're just parroting.
Other reactions
That's just
I
how
see
it is. That's how
happening,
humans operate.
in the industry, because of this trend, is designers have become really obsessed with labeling their game. It's not enough to say I have an RPG. Is it an action RPG? Does it have an open world? Is this going to be controversial if I...
Is it a Souls-like? Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I really like the Souls-like tag. I think they earned it because a lot of games try to emulate the Souls formula, for better or worse, but I think they earned the ability to name a genre after themselves. But I can definitely see them trying to make a game too heavily inspired by some type of genre of game instead of letting the game itself be itself.
talk about this topic, they really want to know what the labels are on their games. And so do you guys. You guys ask these questions. Does it have this content? You know, is it hub and spoke version of a game? As if I can't think of a game that I hated because it was open world versus hub and spoke. I love both of them, and a well-made game can be done in both of them. But this is what a lot of designers think about now when they're putting a game together. They also wonder how influencers will react. If there's an influencer who really likes a lot of the previous games made by you or made at the company you made, you may be putting in a feature and think, is he going to like this? Is she going to comment about this nicely?
I can definitely see that as a problem. If you made a certain specific game and you're just like, okay, our players love this game, and then you go on to the next game and you start adding new systems or maybe systems that you want to add, but may not land, I can see how that could be a major source of stress and worry for a game developer. That makes a lot of sense.
It's probably not a healthy way of designing a game, but I've seen people talk about it. It's gone from how should I make this instead of how do I want to make this.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good way to make games. I'm not doing this, but many people, you know, gamers and developers alike, they want me to. They want me to. When they say, Tim, you've got to listen to us. You and the other devs aren't listening to me. That's not you telling me to make the game I want to make. That's you telling me to make the game you want to make. And that got to a head when I talked about Fallout and whether it's about capitalism. And everybody told me I'm wrong, that it is about capitalism. I'm like, okay, this game is, it's not what I intended, but you guys want it to be what you want it to be.
I think that what a lot of this happens a lot in literature, and I'm sure, you know, obviously there's the meme of what did the author say versus like what literature teachers try to extrapolate from the meaning. When you put a work out there, it obviously becomes not yours anymore. It becomes the public's. And that's just pretty much anything to do with creative endeavors. That's what happens. You don't get to control what people draw as a conclusion from your work, just in general. However, if the creator is telling you that's not what this was about, they're still alive to be able to tell you what they originally intended for it, you should also probably listen to that. Because if you are trying to make a protracted way in which you can discern meaning from something that doesn't actually mean that, it's very awkward to tell the creator that they meant this. Author's death essentially, exactly. But like, we don't live in a time in which most of the authors of video games are now gone, right? And I think it's important to have that clarity. But there's also instances in which you can draw a conclusion from a body of work that wasn't originally meant to be concluded from, because of the way in which people can, and it's beautiful that people can interpret things in a completely different manner than how it was originally interpreted. But it is strange to go there and be like, well, I interpreted it as this, so it's now this. Like, okay, hold on a minute. That's not how this works.
So it's weird when you then turn around and say, well, go ahead and do what you want, but it's not, it better be what we want. I'm curious now because it's 2026 and I have no idea what the 2030s are going to be like.
I have an idea of what the 2030s are going to be like. 2030s is probably going to look like most AAA developers have gone into a massive crash. This is my prediction. Just by viewing the games industry, just barring Black Swan events, I think that we will probably be having a recovery phase for the games industry. There will be a reorientation about how much game budgets should be, and there will be a brief period of a game's drought coming from the AAA side. But indie developers, especially indie developers that have gotten talent from disgruntled AAA developers, will be on fire. And it will be an amazing time for indie developers. Just a prediction. God willing it be true. Because I think we'll get better games out of that scenario. And reorienting and recalibrating the games industry to spend less on major game titles is probably super important. Because then we don't have to deal with the $500 million game that launched to 200 players that goes out of service in the first month. That is so catastrophic. Like, even beyond the fact that it was just like games are just bad games like that, it's catastrophic for the games industry on a whole because it hurts everybody down the line.
I'm concerned it will go one of two ways because the pendulum always swings. Either things are going to become even more tightly controlled in bubbles,
right?
Which means people will stick to this one influencer or this tiny group of influencers, and all of their thoughts will be guided by these people. Or maybe the next generation is going to get tired of that. Get tired of all the labeling and tired of all placing things in a box. I've defined a box, and this game is in this box. And
optimistically, I want to agree with door number 2, but pessimistically, and I am a pessimistic person at heart, I think that it's going to get a lot more atomized before rationality takes place. Only in the sense that it makes more sense to me that people are more willing to take the easier route to reach a conclusion than do the mental heavy lifting on their own, because it's uncomfortable to examine that. And people tend to avoid discomfort, which I think is probably for the worse of society, and we should all be willing to participate in discomfort and expecting and seeking discomfort out. But that's a big ask of a large population, because I think it is in human nature to not do that.
I'm not going to view it any other way. I'm curious where that goes. The internet basically allows the pendulum like that to swing really far and really fast. So I don't know where the 2030s are going to go, but that's what's happened with game design and online influencers and social media over about the last 45 years. Anyway, Padoni Rosso, that was a good question. I hope you liked my answer.
I mean, I think it was a pretty accurate answer. I think it was a pretty succinct and close to what I would have expected the answer to be. Like, I think that it's very true that... Oh, come on. Really? Bruh. Okay. It's very true that we get to a point where video games themselves kind of are more dictated by their influencers. And it is a shame, but it is what it is. I think that's probably the direction that most things are heading. Anyway, I must utilize the restroom. So you're going to sit here staring at Bellular's beautiful face while I do that. I'll be back in like 2 minutes-ish. So play nicely. Oh, that was my elbow. My elbow popped so bad. Ow. What are you doing? I am back. Oh, sorry about that. My dog broke containment, so I usually like to keep them downstairs. I have a roommate who watches my dogs while I basically am streaming. So, because they have a dog too, so we have like 2 dogs in the house, and we just call them our dogs. But he broke the containment. I forgot to close the gate, or he opened the gate and he came up and he was just chilling at my door. I'm like, aw, little guy. But he's a really loud boy, so I'm surprised he wasn't just outside my door barking. He usually sits there and barks to let him in. So anyway, I'm back. Let's get to this Bellular video. How are you doing, Bellular? Again, tell us about Xbox.
Microsoft Gaming is dead. Xbox has returned, and they've done so with a triumphant statement that reads, "We are Xbox."
Yay! What does it mean?
That's right, we. You're an Xbox, I'm an Xbox.
We're all Xboxes.
The new CEO, Asha Sharma, and Chief Content Officer...
Being an Xbox is not your choice, it's my choice. You're Xbox now.
Matt Booty, well, they are Xbox. That's certainly what they want you to think. But you may be wondering, what the hell is an Xbox anymore?
Yeah.
That's basically the thing they're trying to redefine. And in today's video,
it's a cable
we're going to
box
work
now.
out what's going on and dive into the amazingly well-executed PR that they're running in everyone. What we got is leadership drawing a line in the sand after years of chaos. We've even got a new logo that, funnily enough, pulls a little bit from Apple's design language. But all of this is done to show...
Honestly, it went back to the Xbox green. I'm going to be completely honest, that's a huge W in logo design.
That Xbox has changed. But have they really changed? That's
no.
What we're going to work out today.
I'm going to guess no.
This quote's going to define Asha Sharma's time as Xbox CEO. And it is, the plan is the plan until it's not the plan. That's what she laid out.
Is that really... Hold on. Xbox CEO Asha Sharma... This team has brought it back before, and I'm here to help us do it again. Sharma told me that nothing is off the table when it comes to revisiting Xbox's strategy, but finalizing the strategy will take time and data parsing. On Xbox's recent strategic decisions, Sharma said the plan is the plan until it's not the plan. Wow. Way to, make a statement that says literally nothing. You've said words, but really, you've delineated nothing to me.
In her first week in the job, in an interview with Windows Central, she explained that she would take her time to learn, candidly, she said, about why her predecessors made their decisions before, well, going on to make decisions of her own. Now, it was a very buzzword-heavy interview, but hey, as a CEO...
Well, she also came from the marketing department, so it makes sense that it's buzzword-heavy. That's kind of what they do.
It does kind of go like that. But basically, she said she wouldn't rush to change everything. What's a bit strange is that now, a few weeks later, we kind of know the plan. And it starts with describing just how Xbox has failed. We have work to do.
That's
Players
good.
Are frustrated. Those words were in a memo for staff, but obviously it's a very player-centric memo, and that's probably why it ended up immediately getting to the public.
Imagine, that would be, it's so funny to actually see, it's funny to see Xbox finally say, okay, guys, hang on a minute. Step back. We messed up.
Also implicit.
That's refreshing, at least.
Under the bus.
Whether or not they're going to do anything about it's different, but
up fast enough, that Xbox and PC isn't strong enough, and most relevant to you, that pricing is getting harder for people to keep up with.
Okay, I'm curious about what our presence on PC isn't strong enough. What does that mean? Does that mean that you want to start an Xbox marketplace that competes with Steam on the computer, or rather on PC marketplaces? Or are you saying that you're not selling your stuff on Steam enough? Because I hope it's the latter, but I'm afraid it's the former. You mean they're not blaming the players this time? No, they're not blaming the players this time. It's not the players' fault, it's their fault, which, again, good to hear. We'll have to see where they end up on that.
Then, systemically,
bold strategy, Cotton.
Personalization and social features aren't connected enough for players, and developers don't have enough tools and don't think that Xbox helps them enough. Yeah, a bunch of real problems that were all in this memo. Now, they also nailed the state of the industry in the memo, too. The next gen...
You want to fix your problems? Cut a deal with Steam to have the Steam marketplace play on Xbox. Boom. A lot of your situations solved.
Generation of gamers are used to their Robloxes, their Netflixes, and their social medias. They want games to be everywhere. They want to access games instantly. Now, the console market is still significant, but we all do know that PC is growing faster. Subscriptions are growing faster than ever as well.
They are.
Basically means bigger and bigger.
I will say, I do not like subscription services because I do not like the feeling of having to pay for like 4 different subscription services in order to access different parts of media. I think in theory, they work great. In theory, they're great because you can just not have to commit to a standard purchase, get a library open for a small premium. But once you start making that library for a small premium very limited, and I have to pay multiple small premiums for multiple different libraries, okay, you've lost me. So if there was a singular subscription I could pay to get everything, perfect. I'd love it. But I can't. Keep the word subscription out of it, please. Yeah, imagine. I hope that they can, but
risk. We've seen that ravage
they likely
the
won't
over the last 5 or 10 years. And a consequence of a lot of Western slowdown is that now half of gaming revenue comes from new markets like China and Brazil, and their developers are catching up with Western AAAs. Of course, you'll know
with
all
subscriptions,
this
the devil's in the details. Yeah, and that's my thing. Is like, actually, I have a good story about this. I wanted to watch an anime. It was on. This was my big wake up call. I wanted to watch an anime in the original Japanese on Amazon because Amazon had it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this anime. And when I went to it, they said, well, we actually have this anime, but we don't have it in the original subtitled Japanese, or rather, it's not accessible right now. It's out of our library. And I'm like, what do you mean by it's out of your library? I'm literally looking at the English dub right here. Why can't I have subtitles? Can't have it. And now I'm sitting there going, okay, you've just radicalized me. This was like 10 years ago. I said, you have radicalized me to be like, okay, I am never buying another subscription from anybody else on the planet until I can get access to something that you obviously have that I should have access to.
But in this memo, it's all laid out rather plainly. So now, Xbox's mission for themselves is to be a challenger in this new market.
Okay, what does that mean?
Change, and it's clear that the model that got us here is not going to be the one that takes us.
Okay. We're going to take out a huge thing here and ask, what are you going to do? Are you going to actually give us a discernible goal, like an actual effective goal that you are going to do? Because we want to be a challenger is not the same thing as saying, by this time we expect to do this. Like, okay, yeah, I can see being a challenger. I want to be kind of being a goal, but give me a definitive direction in which you are going. Not this like abstract corporate language talking around the point. I'm tired of having 50 subscription to watch a movie that I want because the movie is not part of your streaming service, but only with ads from another subscription, and I don't want a cable package. Like, I totally get that. And I hope eventually we move on to an all-inclusive like subscription model. So we'll just basically reinvent cable, but better.
So now that we've seen how Xbox is identifying,
because I'd be willing to pay for it. I'm not willing to pay 50 times for it.
What's clear is that Sharma wants to project change. Emphasis on the word project there. Now, a statement to Windows Central showed one of her first acts. Asha retired "This is an Xbox" because it didn't feel like Xbox.
Okay.
Another quote reads, "She is personally leading a reset of how we show up as a brand."
Okay.
That stuff does sound pretty good.
Please tell me what that means, though.
Isn't an Xbox because we are all Xboxes. Which
yeah,
is
you're
so
an Xbox now.
That it basically doesn't make sense anymore. So what's actually changing? The series consoles aren't going anywhere.
Okay, hardware. Stabilize Gen 9 as healthy and high quality base. All right. I could see that. Deliver Project Helix to lead in performance and play your console and PC games. Lead in comfortable, personal, high-performance accessories. Build a strong ecosystem that expands choice and reach. Okay, let's cut through the bullshit here. Better graphical fidelity. High performance for play both on console and PC games. And better accessories. Okay, and easier to reach, or rather easier to navigate systems. Okay. We could have said this in plain English, not corporate speak. That's what actually is really kind of worrying me here. Is a lot of this is just corporal borpo speak, so to speak. And I speak corporate. I grew up in an office. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I know how these people tiptoe around points, and not having very clear statements is a red flag.
A quote, healthy and high quality base.
Because
the future, though, is
building a strong ecosystem that expands choice and reach, that's not a clear statement. That is a corporate statement. That is an investor statement right there, because that has all the positive words in it. This honestly should have been build an environment that's easier to navigate. That would have been better. So it worries me.
Helix. Basically, Helix will be able to play PC and console games on a console that also can, quote, lead on performance. The rest of their hardware plan is unchanged, with accessories and, quote, a strong ecosystem that expands choice and reach. Whatever
that means nothing.
Which also does mean, so far...
And I'm assuming that that's what that means, by the way.
Canon knew Helix was going to be a thing, and the leaked 2022 plans showed that the next console was targeting 2028, which does mean that all the stuff...
What is Project Helix? Time to do some research. I know, crazy. Project Helix, Xbox. Okay. I want an AI summary, please. What is... Coding for Microsoft's next generation gaming ecosystem protected around... Okay, so it's like the next box. Got it. Designed a powerful AMD-powered device. Okay. Got it.
Stuff was set in stone well before
Easy.
Asha Sharma got here. So, translation, it's not her plan. Though obviously, she can change the
well, you can change a lot of it. Should be fine.
Set up for her. And it's similar enough with games. They talk about more franchise development and better third-party relationships. Now, in fairness, this has been a strong point for Xbox. We've had games like Ninja Gaiden 4 or marketing for Expedition 33 do fairly well and be a tight enough collab. So really, there can't be much change here. They need a 5-year dev plan, all whilst maintaining their live games and long-term stream.
Okay, so let's say grow an extended and enduring portfolio of franchise players love. Okay. This is important because this is, and I'm begging them, bring back franchises that are dormant. Bring back good games in these franchises that are like Xbox staples, and make new ones. Let's go. I'm totally for this. Please don't fuck it up. Evolve our third-party partnership and strengthen our 5-year slate. Okay. I feel like this one's probably easy. Probably easy to do. Expand into China, marketing, emerging markets, and mobile-first audiences. You are never going to be able to do that. And let me explain. China doesn't consume hardware. They don't consume gaming hardware. They don't do that. They consume games, especially mobile games, but it's a very different market than the American market, or rather Western markets. So that might be a hard ask. I don't know how easy that's going to... I think it's going to be really hard. Maintain and grow live games and long-term stewardship. Just get rid of that. Get it out of here. Nope, because that's all you're going to do. If you try to do more live games, nope, get it out. Unless they mean Xbox live games, but I'm thinking they're talking about live service games. Get rid of it. That's a monkey's paw. You're gonna get fucked up on that. Elevate creator-centric platforms like Minecraft, Elder Scrolls, and Sea of Thieves. So you want to bring a mod manager, mod marketplace into these games so that people can use mods on your system as if it were... Just make a fucking PC. Like, at this point, just make a PC.
Which probably just covers everything from Activision.
Just make a PC that is marketed like a console.
Support, which, by the way, huzzah, is coming to Mac soon. That made me really happy.
Huge.
Though there was one odd note. They say they want to elevate creator-centric platforms. And of course, with the Roblox mentioned earlier, you'd think that this would all be about user-generated content. But the games talked about are The Elder Scrolls Online and Sea of Thieves, which don't have UGC in the same way that, say, Minecraft does.
Right.
Maybe they mean social media creators? It's hard to say.
No, I think they mean mods.
Selling more games to China and more games in emerging markets. So let's be real, it is goddamn obvious. Everyone's doing it.
Well, again...
Let's move to the next thing then.
Because are we talking about Xbox as a game studio, or are we talking about Xbox as a console manufacturer? Because I think we're talking about Xbox on a whole as a console manufacturer. Because like, yeah, it'd be great to be able to put your games in the market, but the infrastructure for that already exists through like Steam, right? So I don't think that's nearly as much of a problem because I think they can just do that right now. I think they are talking about getting consoles into the hands of Chinese players. That's how I read it.
Which is how players play. Basically, they want to fix all of the player and dev problems that were mentioned earlier, and this has already started under Sharma. A, quote, dedicated team to focus on fan feedback has been spun up. The first thing that team did was polish up achievements. But where people play also does matter, and despite the whole death of this is an Xbox, an ad campaign that would like show a picture of your phone and say, this is an Xbox, I guess it was cloud streaming or something. Look, there still is plenty of that. We literally see mobile first audiences still being there as an area for
mobile first
expansion. Now, cloud gaming is supposed to get better for TVs, and
I'm not gonna read the rest of this.
Key to that. They say Game Pass is
I don't think it's
fortified.
Maybe it is fortified Game Pass and clear definition. I didn't want to read it, but I will read it now. And sustainable economics. Okay, just retool that to say discount the price of Games Pass. Okay, return the business to durable growth with strong cost discipline. We're going to spend less money. I think that's probably better. Make cloud play feel native, fast, and reliable across TVs and low-cost devices. I don't know if you're ever going to be able to do that. If you can do that, I'll eat my socks, but I don't think you can do that right now. You need better architecture for the internet. And use M&A deliberately to accelerate growth where organic paths are too slow. Media and analytics? Meta and analytics? I don't know what M&A means. I'm assuming that it's some type of analytical stuff. To deliberately accelerate growth where organic paths are too slow. Okay. What does that mean?
Quote, clear differentiation and
sustainable I can think of like 3 different things that could mean.
By the way, sustainable economics is why they cut Call of Duty in order to drop the price.
Right.
And then differentiation is probably the thing that explains the leaked tiers for every Discord Nitro subscriber. Which, hey, sure as hell, that is a way to increase your daily active users. Now, this all comes down to business goals, and on that there is a bit of chatter. Our new North Star will be daily active players. So there's no mention of platforms or what games. Basically, it's just anything. It all counts. Which is probably why mergers and acquisitions aren't over. You know, if Xbox can't grow naturally, then they'll have to buy whatever it is that they feel they need. But that's likely going to be limited. But above all that, Xbox say they will, quote, regain durable growth with strong cost discipline. Yeah, talk to me like
likely
that. Sexy language, which
merger and
acquisitions
acquisitions
still are an option.
That could be
Obviously,
it for sure, yeah.
They're always going to be an option. But it does tell you.
I don't think that they should do mergers or acquisitions at this point. I think they're beyond that. I think now they just need to double down and only focus on their own brand.
Something. Despite rumors from Windows Central sources that they are lowering the profit margin pressure, Microsoft obviously still does expect profit.
That's good if they're lowering the profit margin expectation, because I think if they keep it too high, they're never going to make it. I think they really need to, like I said, they really need to take some austerity here and be like, okay, actually, guys, we're kind of fucked right now.
And that does mean, so far, so similar.
Hopefully that does. Hopefully they do that, but
other than some immediate quick things like this player experience task force that's been messing around with achievements and are going to do other UI things. Because yeah, if the Xbox 360 blades come back,
that is like kind of a bare minimum right now. So,
coom, yes. But what might change is probably the big one, and it is their approach to, quote, exclusivity, windowing, and AI.
Okay, reevaluate our approach on exclusivity. Great. Let things release at the same time on PC, Windows, and everything. Huge W if you do that. You're not probably talking about that. You're probably talking about maintaining exclusivity, which if you are, no. Windowing, I don't care. AI, I'm torn because I don't want you to be focusing on the development of AI, because I don't think you need to. It can be used in certain things for sure, but if you're using it specifically to be a part of like creative, I have problems.
That's it. They're going to change how they do Windows in their Office. Amazing. Now look, this is kind of vague, but what
it's very vague,
like
yeah,
is exclusive games being an option again, And that is despite Forza Horizon 5 selling 5 million copies on the PS5. Now, that sort of thing could still happen. Games maybe will just take longer to reach.
I mean, the PlayStation's been doubling down. They've been like the sole winner so far.
Now, the AI talk could go either way. So far, Sharma,
and everybody does have problems with exclusives. They're like, why can't I just play it on my PC?
I think we can all get behind anti-slop. But what is a little bit sloppy is the statement that just ends with real startup energy. It's a list of things that Xbox is, and they are corpo bullshit principles of the highest order.
I'm going to love to read this. We have to be honest about where we are. We're a challenger, and meeting this moment will require pace, energy, Oxford comma, and a level of self-critique that should feel uncomfortable. At our best, we, start of a list. 1. Earn every player. 2. Protect our art. 3. Stay rebellious. 4. Progress over perfection. 5. Signal over ceremony. 6. Core before more. Oh my god, that one hurt to read. 7. Outwork the problem. 8. Speed is learning. What does that even mean? 9. Markers over managers. 10. Clarity is kindness. Every single one of those pained me to read. I feel a physical pain right behind my right eyeball. It is now starting to migrate to the back of my head, and I can feel a visceral feeling in the pit of my stomach reading this. This is disgusting. Oh.
Order. They're things for Xbox staff, not you. And if you know what,
I wouldn't be surprised if they used AI here too. I think.
I mean, you have a fair.
Honestly, is there? I'm not gonna go do that, but it would be really funny if somebody could copy paste that into was this generated by AI and see if it was.
Idea is basically just focus on the shit that matters instead of the stuff that we do, because it's what we do.
50% AI, 70% AI.
Maybe that means that Asha wants to just come in there with a big mace.
I think you're probably right about that.
Pieces that's just being done for the sake of it. Who knows? But you know what is a little striking? How little of this is actually new. Most of it is stuff Xbox already said they were doing.
Wow. Who could have suspected as much?
New leader, we got a new logo, and while we don't have the same plan, I think we have
mostly the same plan, yeah.
But I actually think that could do fairly well, because
I'm going to agree with you, because I think that the plan isn't the problem, it's the implementation of the plan and changing the way in which framework. And changing the way in which the plan is framed and the direction from which they are trying to work on the plan is probably the singular way for which they would fix it. Because I don't think the plan's terrible. Emphasis on the terrible part. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting, or the not is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. But I think that the way they were approaching it has been the problem, not the plan itself.
The biggest thing that they got wrong is how everything they did felt to players. Even though Phil Spencer, I think, generally did come across as a guy who really just loved video games. But a lot of what that org produced...
You want to know what he loved more than video games?
It seems to me that that's what Asha really wants to focus on. And given her experience and the likes of Instacart, I basically just, I did some research into her past, the sorts of things that she would focus on, and it basically seems she's a dialed-in person who's got to focus on the actual customer. Well, seems good.
Okay.
But all this brings up a question. Why does Xbox...
I mean, I'll believe it when I see it, but
why the resets,
I'll take it on faith for now.
The repeated lines in the sand. Well, to answer that, you got to look at the last 5 years of just chaos and shit. Before Sharma got the job, Xbox's strategy felt like it was constantly shifting, and they even admitted it in this
Probably
statement.
was.
And we also know why. In 2022, Xbox absorbed Activision Blizzard, creating Microsoft Gaming. It doesn't seem likely Phil Spencer...
In a moment that had the collective public looking at that going, huh? I too like money marginally more than video games, but only because money allows me to purchase more video games. I think that this is at least This is my speculation. This should not be taken as fact, and I am in no way trying to present it as fact. I think Phil Spencer was looking at money much more than video games, and not as a vehicle to buy more video games, as a vehicle to have more money.
Pushed for a closer brand integration, but a year later they actually reorganized again into having ZeniMax, Activision Blizzard, and Xbox's hardware division all being moved under Microsoft Gaming. It was all this weird, confusing stuff.
That is very
then,
confusing.
Of course, came price hikes and Game Pass restructuring, plus the big shift in how exclusive their games would be. Now, all of this was happening whilst people were leaking to the likes of Windows Central that Microsoft were demanding higher and higher profit margins. And of course, with higher margins, we get lots of cost savings.
Getting higher margins like this is just like basically death spiraling your company. Basically saying that everybody who works under you has to meet a certain price metric in order to like be viable or something like that. That kills your company.
The likes of layoffs and cancellations.
Most likely.
Data centers. The whole "this is an Xbox" marketing campaign basically built presence off the Xbox platform, all to help drive.
I'm going to take a second to tangent here about how much I hate advertisements nowadays. I hate them so much. I hate advertisements. I go out of my way to ignore as many of them as I possibly can because they are not telling me what the product is. They're trying to sell me on some type of protracted feeling I should have while I'm utilizing the product. Oh, I could go off on that. I could tangent so much, but seeing this advertisement just makes me roll my eyes.
From non-console things, because the consoles were, not really doing so hot. And this all sounds like a breathless list of shit they tried. Well,
it is breathless. It's toothless too.
Breath, and it was a big old list of things that they tried. Now, right after this statement dropped, the new one that is, Microsoft's financials came in, and they came in negative across Windows.
Q3 2020 fiscal earnings down 2%, down 7%, down 5%, down 33.
And Xbox. The two things where customers are not particularly pleased these days. Gaming revenue is down 7%, content and services.
Looking at this is like one of those things. These numbers aren't good, Mason. These numbers don't mean good things.
Down 5%, and Xbox hardware was down 33%.
I don't even need to ask Mason what they mean. I can tell they don't mean good things.
Probably the Call of Duty front. And of course, they kind of had minimal new releases to really soak up the impact. But what this video is about is what's actually
changed. Those are some bad numbers.
The difference is how Microsoft has prepared for that news and how they're actually treating Xbox right now. So let's talk about that. Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond's decisions were not made in a vacuum. Microsoft was demanding high margins and doing layoffs to fund data centers. There's a bunch of leaks, and of course, their business policies are...
Why Microsoft's enshittification of Xbox, Surface, and even Windows itself are all by design. Who's this written by? It doesn't have an outlet. Oh, Windows Central. The latest layoffs are funding the refreshed attempts to close an external innovation and represent the human cost of Microsoft. Oh my God.
The reason for, say, some of the Xbox boycotts, or just people not feeling like they really gave a shit about the brand anymore. That was the background noise the last 5 years, and the reason Xbox's plans kept on shifting. You see, the thing you have to remember here
they're trying to shift around profits, or trying to shift around money to make sure that they stay in business. Oh my God.
A humongous opportunity, but also an existential threat. And certainly, I mean, look, you see a new Claude model release and a bunch of software as a service companies have their stock go down. Yeah, there's reasons why at a corporate level they wanted to go full send into that shit and free up resources to do so. Obviously, that was not good for us, it was not good for anyone at Xbox, and it's one of the reasons behind the ever-shifting plans. Of course, there's also some direct AI influences, like forcing Copilot into Xbox.
I hate that you have to have a companion AI in your systems now. Because I don't use it. I will never use it. I hate that it is forced upon me, and it is baked so much into the system that you cannot remove it. I want to be able to remove that bitch and get it out of here because I don't want to use it. I don't want it there. But I can't. please, in the future, allow me to remove AI, or an AI assistant from my
reviews,
system.
which is something that has been linked back to the Xbox unionization efforts. Strange little wrinkle. Now, Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond
don't get me wrong. I am not a Luddite on the whole AI assistant thing. I don't care. You want to use it? Go for it. Personally, I'm not going to use it. I don't want it. If I want an AI assistant, I'm going to go out and utilize an AI assistant. I don't want it right here at my fingertips, and I want to choose to be able to remove it from my system when I've purchased it.
Really lose their plans. They basically just had them rewritten and represented. That's what's been going on with the Asher Sharma stuff. So when Sharma stands up in, say, 2 months and tells us that the whole model and everything has changed, I
just go back to naming it Cortana. People will find it more tolerable than Copilot. Yeah, I actually almost said Cortana. But still, I don't want it.
Delivery to customers style of CEO more than whatever, say, Bond and Spencer ended up feeling themselves in when they were working in a Microsoft that obviously was not really doing a great job at the soft bit, was it? Just look at Windows. If I was Satya, I'd just shoot up a bunch of Tren and rebrand the whole shindig to Macro Hard. Screw Microsoft, that's a wimp's name. Anyway, let's talk about the plan being...
I mean, like, I don't even know what I would do if I were her. I think that, like, she's kind of constrained by already what's happening in the background of Microsoft. She's just been chosen to captain a ship that has no wheel and the rudder's already set. So it's like, maybe there's some things she can do to, like, you know, she can up and down the sails. She can't really steer it, I don't think, that much. I think she's been given a strange position. And I don't even know if I would blame her in the event that Microsoft or Xbox rather gets completely worse, because I think those plans were started well before she took over. But at the same time, if the wheel is there and she can change the direction of the ship, I think she could do a lot of things in a positive direction if she so chooses, and I hope she does. Gamers only want one thing. It's to be able to voice activate Cortana and give her a pop-up. Listen, if they had an actual Cortana model that came with your PC that had a little hologram projection right next to you, I don't think anybody'd be complaining about it. I wouldn't complain about it at that same time, because it definitely hits the feels like, you know, way back in the day with Cortana and stuff like that. But I still don't want to have an AI in my PC if I want to fucking remove it.
The plan, what's going on. Basically, I think Microsoft...
Give me the choice! I'm responsible enough to make that choice!
...grace period to try and reset things, having some real agency that perhaps Spencer and Bond didn't have. But there's also probably a reason players are being primed with all of this information now. Just like Xbox said about Sharma's plans, this is a chance for a cultural reset of, quote, how we show up as a brand. And I think that's one of the things they have cocked up the most. And really, most of what's been laid out internally is tinkering.
I think you're right about that. I think they definitely have massively mishandled their direction as a brand. I think that it's important, at least in a way, for them to be able to distinguish themselves from a PC. And I don't know, as consoles are continuing to move to the point where they're basically PCs just for the TV, I don't know how well you're going to be able to make that line. I think that's why I said earlier, just make a fucking PC. Just make a PC that can also exist in your bedroom. Or sorry, your, wherever it is that you have your television, actually. I don't know where people have their televisions anymore, because I don't have a television.
Around the edges.
I got a monitor.
Features, changes in focus to address player feedback, but the broad structure is unchanged. It's a big multi-plat ecosystem that sells games and Game Pass subscriptions that is ran by people who ultimately answer to Microsoft. That is what it is, and I don't really think that's going to change much. So my message here today is, as much as it's really fun, and look, in our work chat, we all partake in the, Queen Sharma saving everything, memes that are going on.
Okay.
But I want to be clear. What we're getting now is mostly marketing. And I don't mean that in a devious way, because marketing is
No, you mean it in the quite literal way. Like,
you see the marketing, and that primes you to experience.
All they're
the
doing
product.
is corporate
And the
speak with marketing.
the messaging, all of those things. If
Was
that's
that
done right,
Battletoads? Are they making a
whenever you
remake
receive
of
the product,
Battletoads?
Maybe you're going to be a bit more
Interesting.
primed to actually like
Did
it.
they make a remake?
You know, imagine if, say, you got a
I think
new
they did,
phone or a new
actually,
something,
now that I'm
and
thinking
just
about
came
it.
in a Ziploc bag. And I think that's why the whole "this is an Xbox" campaign basically failed as hard as it did. Because while it was in line with her corporate strategy of growing the brand outside the console, what it did mean is that people who once gave a shit about Xbox, or maybe still have an Xbox,
Don't
would
care
basically
anymore.
see a picture of something that isn't an Xbox
Yeah.
and marketing copy that said, "This is an Xbox." Of course, they know it isn't really an Xbox, so obviously that did not work. That's a good example of well-meaning marketing that makes strategic sense, but that fails at the level where it gets delivered to a customer. And from what
They
I
were
can
trying to
tell, getting
cast
that
too
kind
broad of
thing
a
right
net.
is more what Sharma's focus. And
I think that's the thing, is like they were definitely trying to cast too broad of a net. I think a lot of hardware developers and games developers at this point fail to realize that if they cast too broad of a net, they alienate their already pre-built-in audience. I think that casting a broad net in the sense of trying to get people who aren't into, we'll just say, gaming as a hobby or gaming as a lifestyle, and trying to bring them into that, you as a brand are never going to be able to do that. You have to depend on people who are already part of your brand, bringing other new people into the brand. Because advertising to people like, who are normies that don't want to play a video game, that's not going to energize them to play the game. It's not going to energize them to buy your product. What you want is, you want to say, hey, you really like this. Go get your friends to also play this. That has so much more marketing potential and so much more product potential, rather, than advertising to people who aren't your audience.
Their strength has been.
Purely on
there's
its
something
face.
inherently wrong with what's going on here, except perhaps for one thing. Microsoft Gaming might be dead, but the Microsoft that killed it is very much alive, and that's the same Microsoft that demanded the margins, funded the data centers.
I once again blame, and hear me out when I say this, COVID bringing in temporary customer surges.
Performance reviews. Sharma is not the first.
You are correct in the sense that gaming blew up during COVID because it was just an accessible pastime that people were able to do, and it definitely created a bubble. You are 100% correct in that. And I think what we all fail to realize, or at least what most companies fail to realize, is after that, people went back to life as normal and did not establish a new normal. That's the problem, is they expected it to become the new normal. It was not. And it was short-sighted, which makes sense because these companies don't plan for more than a year out. But
Xbox
it is what it is.
Draw a line in the sand. We all saw Spencer.
That's why it's
do
probably
that
going to
after
crash.
Metric. But she is the first one operating after years of that line being moved by people above her pay grade. So, just as she said, this is the plan. But the question is going to be, where will that plan be in 6 months? Will it still be the plan?
Who
Or
knows?
will it be in a year? If Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond,
God willing,
made
she has
statements
broad
like this,
discretion
how
on
fast
changing
would they
it.
have been forced to change them? And I say that because of one of my intrusive thoughts. I would look at Phil Spencer and I would just think, lies of P. Phil Spencer.
Okay, this is oof. That's a big oof right there. It caused the forced surge for casual normie audience marketing that led to what we're seeing. I think that the marketing towards normies had started happening much before COVID. I think that it was that, like, around the mid 2015s is where they were starting to try to reach markets that were outside of their reach, and really started transforming their system into more of like a system that normies would want to play or maybe interact with. I think this started a lot earlier than COVID. It just got heavily exacerbated and highlighted by COVID. At least that's from what I remember. I could be misremembering, but that sounds right to me. So
game lies.
This is a crazy
that
picture,
would
by
just,
the
like,
way.
appear in my head, and it's not because I really thought Phil Spencer was ever lying to us whenever he would say something that would later turn out to not be true. I think he was in a shitty position where stuff kept on changing all around him, where plans were being made and executed, but then changed, and all of that hell bullshit. And really, the thrust of this video, the big thing, is that really seems to have came from Microsoft. The question is whether Microsoft have changed. Sharma is there as a new person in the job. It seems that her skill set is really well matched to the problems the Xbox brand currently faces. But she reports to Satya. Satya doesn't report to her. She reports to the big CFO, not the other way around. And those will be the fundamental constraints.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I really hope that she's not getting a ship that
really has to
already has a predetermined destination.
It's such a huge part of, well, their entire business.
Like,
it needs to work. Plan A must work.
I'll be fair. I'm going to be super fair. I'm going to accept on good faith that she is trying to make a better company out of this because that's what I want. I'll accept that. Why not? I don't see a downside in accepting that insofar as that is what I want and she is telling me what I want to hear. But I will accept it with an eye of skepticism because I'm not entirely sold on it because I've been told this over a lot of times before and I've been burned before as a customer.
Screwed. When I look at Microsoft and Xbox, well, you know what? Xbox is but one of many different things. And maybe if some of their ambitions do end up taking off over the next few years,
or Valve,
well, then Xbox might be a less and less important part of that business. Meanwhile, with Sony, they goddamn need PlayStation. I don't recommend pre-ordering.
Sony has been absolutely screwing the pooch too.
Said, you must pre-order the next console from one of these two big companies. I would choose PlayStation, and the reason why is honestly fairly simple. It's because PlayStation means more to Sony than I think Xbox means to Microsoft. It's basically
that's pretty insightful.
No, it's not simple. It's
that's pretty insightful.
Stuff, but I have got American legal stuff.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That's what we all can do.
America or
exactly.
Not in America. Well, you know, the United States of. It's basically about stop killing games in California. It's pretty.
Like, hopefully, I can manifest into being the good things that'll come. Like, I'm gonna try to believe it, but it's not like. It's not something that I will hold my breath over. Like I said, I'm not a betting man. Generally speaking, I'm not a betting man. So I wouldn't be willing to put money on this. I don't know. I want it to work out because there's some intellectual properties on Xbox that I really like. Like, obviously I grew up with Gears of War. I really like the Gears of War franchise. I want it to be good. The fact of the matter is I'm still worried about it. I still have a worry about it. So I don't know. I'm hoping that we'll see good things. Okay. I want to get to one more video. This will be the last video. I sat on it for a week. I said we'd get to it this week. So we're getting to it this week. I know I'm going a little bit over, but I want to get to the new Shoe on Head video.
Your eggs.
Scary. I want to get to the new Shoe on Head video. Like I said, I like Shoe on Head. I think she's funny. I disagree with her on a lot of things substantively, and that's okay. We can disagree. But she's funny. She, again, helps me see things from another perspective, which is important. And I heard this video is really funny, so we're going to get right into it. What do you got for us?
Your eggs are drying up.
I don't have eggs.
If you're a woman online, you have probably heard that many times. Perhaps this image haunts you at night. It is a true fact that women's fertility...
By the way, that image has been actually causing people some heart palpitations.
begins to decline at age 30, and they suddenly wake up and get what we call baby fever. But what about the men?
I've actually seen some girls like that in my life.
Do their balls shrivel up into little raisins and die? Do they wake up one day and get baby fever? Do men have a biological clock in the same way women do? I've briefly joked about this in videos before. In fact, a clip of mine from a video I did a few months ago actually went viral recently thanks to the VTuber Smuggalana.
Ah, yes, the
Smuggalana mentioned.
Male biological clock. It's not physical, but...
By the way, huge for Smuggalana.
It's spiritual.
Men will deny this.
I'm wondering. I'm actually waiting for her reaction on this. It's probably out already.
But one day you're going to have a dream. You have a little daughter making pancakes with your wife in the morning, and you're not going to be able to get it out of your head. Oh my God. And the comments were full of men discussing their dreams to start a family. There is not much discussion about men's desire to have children. Like many things, it's not really something they talk about publicly. That was until a certain video game came out.
What are you?
I cannot believe that this was such, like, Twitter had such a meltdown over this game. Like, I'm playing it right now on stream. Like, every Wednesday, which will be tomorrow, by the way, cough, cough. I'll be playing some Grimshire and then getting into Pragmata. But I've been playing it on stream. Like, I've literally come across nothing that should have ever had been controversial. Like, it's just a good, wholesome game. It's fun to play. It's got a decent enough story right now. I mean, honestly, it felt like a Capcom game in a good way. And the fact that people were just like absolutely mauling out about this on Twitter just really shows that people literally have nothing more to care about in their lives. It's so sad. Also, yeah, imagine sometimes men want families too. That shouldn't be controversial. That shouldn't be weird.
I am DI03367, a state-of-the-art pragmata created here
God,
at the
imagine
Cradle.
how that could ever
I
be a
possess
controversial
basic life
statement.
saving-
How about we call you Diana?
Diana?
Pragmata is a sci-fi action game where you play as astronaut Hugh Williams, who is sent to investigate an abandoned moon base. He meets a childlike android named Diana, and they team up to survive and escape the space station.
Yep.
Along the way, they uncover what
that's
went
about
wrong
accurate.
and defeat the bad guys, all while forming a strong emotional bond.
I know a lot of people were like really happy, or not really happy, like they really kind of like had emotional
I'm counting on you,
reactions to
kiddo.
parts of this game.
But it seems to have
In a
awakened
good way,
something
not a bad
deep
way.
within gamers, especially male gamers. The urge to get married and have kids. I'm not planning on getting married and having kids, but damn, this game is like fatherhood calling to me. Is this how women feel about their biological clocks? This game makes me want a daughter. What is this feeling inside me? It can't be. It's like, I want to protect. It's like, I want to be a dad. They won me over. The white baby makes me feel paternal. I will burn anyone and anything that tries to harm her.
What a fucking profile picture.
This game is dragging out the innate dad instinct.
Was that the critical
want to like
drinker?
Pragmata, but I can't, knowing that men are also enjoying it. This
I cannot believe.
is a game for incels.
That's so weird on its face, logically on its face. Wanting to play a game where you protect like a child figure or something like that as a strong, positive, masculine role model is an incel game. Okay. I think we've officially reached where definitions don't mean anything.
Yearly gamer culture war slot.
Yay!
2014 forever, man. We are never going to escape Mr. Gamergate's wild ride. In this video, we are going to discuss the facts and theories behind the so-called male biological clock, after we discuss the drama surrounding the game Pragmata, and how a bunch of men expressing a simple, wholesome desire, the desire to start...
I mean, like, I don't even know if that controversy quote over it is like, it feels like almost manufactured in a way. Like, it's probably not. Like, people probably legitimately believe the things that they say about it online, mostly because, like, I think these people might be they need to get offline. Let's put it that way. But I think they probably do sincerely believe what they say, because they wouldn't be consistently saying it if they didn't sincerely believe it. But it feels manufactured because it's just like, I find it so wild that somebody would have such a adversarial opinion about something that ostensibly is anodyne.
family has turned into yet another culture war, yet another gender war. The gender war. Men versus women, women versus men, the male loneliness epidemic, the female loneliness
women versus women
epidemic, dealing with dating apps, hookup culture. Do men like curvy or thin women? Do women like dad bods or fit men? Do they like beards or clean shaven? Oh yeah. That reminds me. Before we get deeper into this video, let's quickly give a shout out to today's sponsor.
This is why Opera GX has a touch grass simulator.
For the last few decades,
I didn't know
racers
that.
haven't been
Is that
designed
real?
to work better. They've been designed to be
I touch grass
marketed
pretty much
better.
every day,
More
so
features, more gimmicks, more
I
blades.
at least have to go outside to do
one
one
more blade,
thing.
bro. One more blade, I promise, bro. One more blade. While skin irritation is just treated like something you just have to deal with. And a major cause for
I'm so
irritation
thankful. I don't have
is
problems like that when I
blade
shave.
flex.
Thank God.
Because most razors use springs to let the blades move as you shave. That helps them adapt to like different angles, but also causes extra tugging
Also
and
not as
razor
close as a
burn.
shave.
Most people just learn to cope with like aftershave and cold water, fixing the symptoms instead of the cause. The question nobody asks is, should the blade even move? And here's where Henson Shaving comes in. By fully supporting a two-sided blade,
straight razors
all
exist for a
across its
reason.
length, they hold the blade in place, preventing any bouncing or skipping, resulting in an irritation-free shave. No springs, no movement, no need to compensate with
I've
pressure.
heard these razors
and there's
are
something
actually pretty
really
good.
satisfying about that. Not just getting a better
Wouldn't know,
shave,
haven't ever used
but
them.
finally fixing something
But I heard
that's
they've been pretty good.
quietly annoying you for years. Like when you spend months wondering why you don't feel rested even after you get 8 hours sleep, and then you realize, oh, I
know
need
why
a new
that is.
mattress. You don't
No,
need more aftershave.
I just need to
you
put
need
the
a new
phone down
razor.
before I go
and
to
since I
bed.
switched to Henson, I noticed that my shaves have been
Okay, I
smoother
got
than
called
ever.
out on that
no
one.
tugging,
Not gonna
no
lie.
cuts. The best part is once you invest in a Henson razor, it is a lifetime purchase. The
So
only
though,
thing
I've
you
been
need to
having-
replace
like I
are
said,
the
I've been
blades,
having weird
which
dreams
cost
lately.
just 10
Not like
cents
weird dreams,
each.
more like
so once you
vivid
own the
dreams.
razor, you'll
Been
only be
very
spending like
interesting.
$3 to $5 per year. Henson offers a variety of different colors. I have the
I said I had a weird
rose
dream
gold.
last
I
night
think it's
about,
so cute. So if you're tired of
was
razor
doing a
burn,
bunch of
skin
yard
irritation,
work.
and overpaying for
My neighbors
replacement
were throwing
blades,
wood
Henson
into my
Shaving is
backyard,
definitely worth checking
saying
out.
that I was
Just
like,
head
why are you
over to
doing that? They're like, well, it's your tree anyway. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes
And
sense.
add both a Henson razor and 100 blades
I don't
to
know
your
what it
cart.
means.
Then enter code SHOE at checkout to get the blades for free with your purchase. Big thanks to Henson for sponsoring this video, and thank you, the viewer, for not skipping the ad. Right? Now,
Right,
let's get back
I didn't
to the
skip
video.
the ad. I'm a good viewer.
Throughout history, there have been countless stories centered around a very specific dynamic. The adult protector and a child.
It's almost like it's a story that's been told for the entirety of human existence. Almost like it's a basal part of the human experience to want to protect something that is still growing and developing. Surprisingly enough, that's a thing. Wow. I wonder why.
See it everywhere. In video games, they call it a dad simulator. The Walking Dead, The Last of Us, God of War, Detroit Become Human, BioShock, Life is Strange. Also movies like Logan, True Grit, in a way, Monsters, Inc.
And
Shows
books.
like The Mandalorian. Literature has done it forever with The Road, Les Miserables, and many, many others. It shows up time and time again because it taps into something deeply human. The instinct to
I knew so many people that were obsessed with Les Miserables, and I was just like, back in high school, and I was just, because when I was in high school, that movie, around that time, the movie came out with, oh god, the guy who did Gladiator. Yeah, it came out at that time. So a lot of people were like, oh my god, this is the best play ever, and they were playing the music all the time, and I was just like, okay, it's a good story, but I wasn't overwhelmed by it, let's put it that way.
To protect,
but I get
to
it.
guide, to teach,
because Jean Valjean did
nurture
that.
something more vulnerable than yourself. It is a beautiful and powerful story that has been told for centuries. And you're like, really weird? And
no, like probably more like tens of thousands of years.
Incel for enjoying it, actually. Incel game. If you buy this game, I'm gonna assume you are.
Okay. We're about to see a bunch of words used in their like 3C definition. So really, words used improperly.
I feel like it's a breach of
there's
ethics
two
at
right
this
there.
point to design child characters for an audience of majority male gamers. Like, let's stop with the
Interesting
defenseless
opinion.
girl the big strong man has to protect. This reeks of sexism and control. I hate these
How?
father simulator
How?
games. They always give me the creeps.
Oh
This
my
is
God,
low
dude.
Kirkenuanly fascist propaganda and gives
What the heck does this even mean?
me pedo vibes. Wouldn't it be cool if I sneezed right now?
I want to do the
Fascist
same thing.
Propaganda. If this is fascist propaganda, slap me and call me Adolf. Zoom.
You are not the only person with that opinion. And I'm going to let you know that it is scary that they are creating essentially a second order effect of people who believe the same way. And that is scary. I had to go find it in Opera, but it's on the, it's in the playground, but I sent you a screenshot of Grass Simulator. Ah, I gotcha. So there's like there's a play area, a playground in GX's little menu. Okay, gotcha.
More women
That's funny,
really look
though.
at a wholesome game involving a child and wait, what the f is low Kirkenuanly? After
Right?
hearing about
What the fuck does that mean?
toxic masculinity for the past like 15 years now, finally a topic comes up where it's overwhelmingly positive masculinity. And what is the response? I think the funniest thing about the Pragmata controversy is that those incels genuinely think they could ever get near enough to a woman to impregnate one. It's not nuanced. Pragmata is blatant pedophilia catered to male gooner gamers.
Can I get an explanation on this, please?
Why are people thinking this is sexual or makes you a pedophile? Because men are notorious for being peds and disgusting humans.
I don't think both genders equally are like that, by the way.
Sexualize everything.
All right, are we going to talk about some of the literature that's reached mainstream recently? Who's that geared towards?
You are not very smart.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of loser males who often turn to gaming are pedos. It is an unconscious strategy to...
We don't need to wait for a machine to create parallel realities. We're already here in people's minds. You know, again, this is one of those moments where you can definitely tell the difference between somebody who goes out and talks to a normal human or regular human being, generally regularly, and somebody who only has all of their reactions through a screen. I'm gonna bet you that the Venn diagram there is a circle, as a particular king of the roaches says.
Avoid competing with chat, as well as complementing their own pure dirtiness. Stall development. What? Y'all are full of shit talking about dad instincts and whatever. We know why the f you want to play the game. You want to crack the little blonde.
That is a wild thing to say. This is an absolutely unhinged and wild thing to say. Why would you say that? Why would you ever say that?
Bimbo slut.
What the fuck?
What? This character design.
Yeah, no, exactly. What? Like, what are you saying? Like, did you think about that before you typed it out? Did you proofread that?
Out. Why does she look like a doll? Why is this blonde child with a blowout running around?
Because she's an android. Because she needs that to charge her battery. Like, literally it says in, like, the first act.
I'm barefoot. I've not yet played the game. Is this expanded on in the plot?
Yes,
or
it is.
Or is this just eye candy for creeps?
Imagine. No, that's what you want it to be, I guess.
I feel like I'm going insane. She just looks like a cute kid to me. Like, that is just literally a cute little kid.
If you see anything else, you're kind of, like,
and
weird.
I am a huge pervert, mind you. I do not see what the f these people are talking about. Are there creepy people on the internet who are sexualizing Diana?
Yes, and they are wrong.
Yes, it is a small minority, but it is still disgusting. In fact,
absolutely, 100%. If you're doing that, you are a very weird person that needs to be run out of town. Don't do that. That's wrong. That's weird. Stop it. But judging the entire population by this small population of people who would probably do it regardless of whatever character it was, like, come on, man. Really? Now you're just grasping at straws.
The subreddit had to be shut down because people were making not safe for work art of this child, which honestly is not shocking. It's Reddit. But that's not the game's fault.
True,
the
I guess, yeah,
Reddit
slander.
Creepy in it. These creepy people will always exist,
I'm all for that.
Unfortunately. I have made several videos about these people existing. People getting mad here are not getting mad at the people sexualizing Diana. That would be completely understandable. It would make sense if they were
No, they're using it as a tangential reference point in order to be mad at something else.
Going to the accounts that were doing that and calling them creeps. But no, they're for some reason just getting mad at people liking and enjoying the game. They're just spurting out and randomly calling everyone.
It's like, hey, did you know this artist is a really bad person? Why do you like their art? It's like, dude, because, like, that's got nothing to do with the art. Or I guess better yet, it would be, hey, do you know that people really don't like this piece of art because of what happened later on to somebody unrelated to it? It's like, oh, okay, sure. Like, anywhere else that you would apply this logic to any other medium, it's like, what are you talking about?
Anyone incels.
Why did they make her look like a porn star, though?
Why is the child sexy? Are you okay?
If that's what you see, you're really tattling on yourself.
Freaks see a child, immediately sexualize them, and think everyone else is as creepy as they are. Like, no, bitch, that's you. And Reddit. You and Reddit. There is nothing in this video game that caters to the freaks except for the fact that Diana is a child. Compare that to, like, Cuties, where there were up-closes of...
I'd like to hear them condemn Cuties.
Real children twerking. That...
They'll never do it because it comes from a seemingly allied side.
That is media. That is catering to those people.
Yeah,
An
that's.
article recently
I
came
can't
out
believe that
from
movie
the
exists. By the way,
outlet The Gamer, that in the beginning talks about
like when that came out, I was just like, "There's no fucking way," right? Because like, that's really an indication of how healthy a society is, like on a whole. That is acceptable to make. And that really had me terrified for a solid month.
Happened on the Reddit.
Oh my
how
God,
disgusting
I
some
cannot
people are being
believe.
towards the character Diana. Okay, fair enough. I agree. But then towards the end,
I can't
the
believe that
author
we've already
throws
made it
in
here.
Something very telling.
I have not yet played Pragmata, and that's because I'm a little tapped out on stories where
No, I have not yet played Pragmata. Okay, opinion disregarded.
men adopt daughter-like figures and prove their masculinity by protecting them.
That
Sure. Yeah, okay,
that
bud.
is their real problem. Men,
Yeah.
men protecting people. That's just them proving their masculinity.
I'm sure they'll get real
And as we
far
all
with that
know,
as a
masculinity
talking
bad.
point, yeah.
Blatantly not fuel, whether you agree with it or not. The average attraction trope on a little girl, blonde, blue eyes. I mean, the whole game is low-key Nazi propaganda.
Oh, really? Is it? Okay, how the fuck? I can't engage with that. I'm gonna
I
maul.
think the men who play this are probably creepy, but how is it Nazi propaganda?
Yeah, exactly.
Blonde, blue-eyed toddler and tiaras looking white girl you have to save is literally Nazi propaganda straight out of the 1930s, dude.
Like, I almost think that they can't be real, right?
Sorry, I don't see it. Ugh, I really don't have the energy to deal with this. Just use your brain.
Ah, okay, I see. So when you're confronted with somebody saying that, explicate your point a little bit more, you then have to balk and not be able to explain your point because you have no point. Got it.
Sorry, I don't have the energy to explain my schizophrenic paranoid delusion. Good.
Exactly.
I don't have the energy to listen to it. Listen, I know we're all used to seeing gay, black, Hispanic, disabled furries in media lately, but I promise you,
kinda.
white people still exist. It's not Nazi propaganda.
I feel like this girl character is an objectification of the idealized child. She's pulled right from the patriarchal white supremacist imagination.
Oh my fucking god. Okay, so we can add these words. We can add patriarchal and white supremacist now in addition to our words that have no meaning.
The
Got
perfect
it.
pure white girl child that must be protected so she can produce the next white generation.
That is so schizophrenic. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're a fucking android. Oh, Jesus. Unsolicited opinions from online prostitutes. This should have been the fucking thumbnail.
Anyway.
Funny how y'all have paternal instincts for a child with a model woman's face plastered on it. Make her look like an actual kid with missing teeth, short hair, bare face, snot, and see if those instincts kick in the same. This game is openly catering to pedos. The gaslighting is over.
Wait,
What the fuck are you even talking about?
trying to follow the logic here.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Let me just give myself some brain damage.
You're gonna need a baseball bat for that one. I don't think that's gonna help. Maybe go back in time and drop yourself repetitively from a tall building.
So we make her look more like a child in order to not cater to pedophiles?
Imagine.
Am I following that correctly? Also, the face on the left is like a child 6 to 7 years old, and the one on the right is like a 3-year-old. Diana's a robot kid. She's not a robot toddler. Also, again, she looks like a kid. Am I going insane? Like, that looks just like a little kid.
You know, you're going insane. The world's going insane. Actually, no. Rather, you are not going insane. But in a crazy world, the sane look like they are insane.
Do they just want her to look ugly? Is that what this is? They want her to be ugly?
Dude,
like,
I don't know, man.
I need more brain damage. Hold on.
Weeb incel gamers LARPing saying, ooh, I want to be a dad now, because they're manipulative, creepy freaks and like the ooh little girl with the model face, especially the lolicons, obviously.
Oh my god. I don't think we're okay. I think we're not okay. I think somebody needs to give a mental health checkup to this person. I think they need someone knocking at their door to see if they've taken care of themselves for the day.
Devs know the male gamers hate a real.
This is like the new equivalent to wearing tinfoil around because the aliens are going to be beaming messages into your, sorry, the government's beaming messages into your brain.
Her ugly child, because that's not what they're playing for. If they made her look like a realistic ugly child, none of them would be saying this. First of all, why are they acting like it's realistic to portray children as ugly and disgusting? Children are not ugly and disgusting. Like, they're cute and adorable.
They've been bitten so hard by the propaganda that they literally cannot rationalize anything outside their very narrow worldview. That's
what they're known for.
It's like, so crazy.
She's made to look cute. Yes. That's how you know this game was not made by Western video game developers.
Right, yeah.
That's how you know there was
made by the
no
East.
Liliths on the dev team here. You guys would lose your shit while playing BioShock. Actually, BioShock is a really good example of this design working right. The little sisters are all gross and have gray-green skin. No!
Having played BioShock, having it be one of my most favorite games that I've ever played, they are like completely wrong in that assessment. Like, just they're completely wrong. That's not what it was. Tinfoil Hat, it's once again the East Asian game getting this right. Definitely, I can see that. Yeah, people have a concerted effort to try to make East Asian games look bad. I mean, I'm not willing to ascribe to that as a conspiracy theory. But 3 makes a pattern. 2 is a coincidence. We're kind of straddling that 2-3 area right now. Strange, isn't it? Oh, but no, like, that's like not the point of BioShock. Like, I don't, just on its face, that point is blatantly wrong.
You don't understand. Everything around me must be ugly as alright?
And like, you can even point to the next game of BioShock 2 really disproving that too. Because BioShock 2 was basically the same plot as this in a way, in a protracted measure. So it's just like, and they increased like, or they decreased the uncanniness of the way that the little sisters look in BioShock 2 to make a greater point about the narrative. But in that being the case, BioShock 1's little sisters were not by any means what I would consider to be like ugly. They were thematic.
I will furiously start masturbating. This all sounds
right,
like 2014
exactly.
discourse.
They weren't, there we go. That's what I'm looking for. They weren't meant to look ugly. They were made to be uncomfortable in a way, like in an uncanny way. But they're conflating that because they don't have the words or the understanding or maybe even the media literacy to be able to make that point.
Discourse. Please don't let there be Gamergate 2.0. Who's going to be the shoe on head 2.0 to emerge from Gamergate 2.0? If she's listening now.
We're not in a Gamergate 2.0. We're in a Gamergate Cold War.
This might sound very vague.
That wound never closed.
Don't. That thing? Don't do it.
Although we are making very heavy strides to clear the infection and the rot that is in this festering wound. And I honestly think the white blood cells are starting to finally clear it out.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Thank God.
Thanks for talking to me all the time. Ta-da!
Is this supposed to be when we first boarded the tram?
This was the scene that got a lot of people, or at least there's been a lot of scenes floating around. Or rather, a lot of clips floating around.
You wrote your name, too.
Hell yeah.
Not half bad, kiddo.
This robot girl makes me uncomfortable, and the fact that I haven't seen female gamers fawn over her is interesting.
Yeah, well, it's because you haven't been looking, I guess.
I've seen more clips of her and that man, and that is not how kids behave. Something weird is going on here.
Said a person who has no children.
The something weird going on here is you, ma'am. You are the something weird. Men like the Father Simulator game where you have to protect a small child and shoot up a bunch of robots in space. Suspicious. Also, I have seen plenty of female gamers falling over this character.
Oh yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
We've got 3 right here, huh?
Okay.
Wow.
Everything's all about humans.
Imagine how that works.
Who would win? Decades.
Me, the female gamer, fawning over a child because she's adorable. Yeah, I wonder how that works, huh? Strange how that works. You must be the only one, right?
Of anti-natalist propaganda? One little bean. There were even women cosplaying as her. And when women even...
So I think it's actually interesting because Asmongold brought up a good point about, like, if you're using this to kind of, like, fight a political ideology between, you know, natalist, anti-natalist propaganda, whatever have you, like, that's kind of weird. And I kind of agree. Mostly because it's just like, does that really matter? Like, we don't need to bring politics into everything. And now we're at this problem where now politics is brought into everything. Imagine.
Expressed how cute they thought Diana was. They're also met with this.
Oh my god, Diana is so precious and adorable. I'm gonna love this game. Thanks for telling everyone why you want to play the game before you make up some other excuse to hide your Yeah.
Imagine. I cannot imagine being this guy online. Like, I couldn't imagine being like that. How terrible does your life have to be to say that? Like, you have to be in a bad spot. I hope it gets better for him, honestly.
What? Water guns are the best. I like it just as much as crayons. I like how the sand feels on my toes. I press down and sink in. Children don't act like this. This is how someone who fetishizes fatherhood wants children to behave.
Dude. No. I probably said something just like this when I was a kid. I'm pretty sure I did say something like this when I was a kid.
To normal people, it's actually deeply off-putting.
Yeah,
the
imagine.
The best part was all the actual parents.
Also, notice how they're trying to claim that they are part of the group of normal people.
Like, replying to these people like, yeah, no, that is literally how my 5-year-old acts.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, no, that's pretty accurate. Fetishizing you mean the human desire to procreate and start a family? Oh, you want to meet a woman and settle down and have a family?
Yeah,
maybe
how dare you?
2 dogs? You sick
Yeah, you sick fucking incel.
We've reached radioactive levels of incel propaganda.
Oh, Jesus Christ, of course.
What does incel mean anymore? I feel like
It doesn't mean anything. Incel doesn't mean anything because these people just use it as a catch-all insult. That is the issue, is words no longer have meaning. They are taking away the meaning of words. I hate it.
Ask this in every single video.
Get upset
this
over
tweet
that.
got thousands of likes. I feel like I am going and saying, where does the incel part come from?
Like, they want men to be open about their emotions, and then men are open about their emotions.
And then
they're just called Nazis or incels or both. Usually both. It's usually a package deal.
And this tweet came from a man to make things worse. A grown-ass man saw another grown-ass man speaking about the normal human desire to want a family and want children one day, and called him an incel. Cockroach behavior.
In any case, what is this?
Capcom's we're going to talk about the boy himself, aren't we?
Pragmata, it's making thousands of people suddenly want to start a family. You play a US soldier stranded on a ruined lunar research station whose job is protecting the childlike android Diana.
By the way, he played this on stream.
Diana, while fighting rogue AI, in one emotional moment, she gives him a crayon drawing of the two of them together as a little family. Even streamers who say at the start they didn't want kids end up breaking down happy in tears. So what's really interesting,
okay, we're gonna be hit right now with the knowledge of 1,000 men. The wisdom that we are about to hear shall be cherished and published for generations to both mythologize and collectivize around. Please tell us.
About this is all of these unfuckable losers in the gaming sphere always talk about like starting families and stuff. And I don't understand like why this has become a thing that they care about. Like, if you're a gamer, you should care about things that you actually experience. You should care about things that you actually enjoy, right? If you're a lonely gamer who has never been around a woman and will never have sex with a woman, why do you care? Like, why do you care about having children or like riding for having children? Like, it's just not.
He says as his children run in the background and his wife brings him food because she loves him.
Not something that you're going to experience ever for your life, for the rest of your life, right? This is something that I never understand.
He says as he makes comments about a situation that he is not actively participating in. Truly wise words. I will cherish these for the rest of my life.
Wow, maybe there's a reason people are yearning to start a family and can't afford to have one and can't seem to find a partner. They feel alienated from their work and atomized from their community. If only there was a political commentator around to speak about all this.
Oh well.
Oh well, guess not. First of all, the only care about something if it affects you is extremely libertarian coded and also very weird coming from a guy who understandably wants everybody to care about a genocide that is happening across the ocean.
It's also very wrong because you can care about things that you don't personally participate in, right? You can care, and we're just going to use a really good example about this. You can care about the right for people of the same sex to get married. You could be not gay, 100%. And you can still care about and have a vested interest in allowing them to share in the same happiness as heterosexual couples can. That's totally okay. That's okay. You can care about stuff that you don't participate in. It's 100% within human nature. And if anybody else is trying to tell you that you shouldn't do that because you don't participate in it, you can tell them to go get bent, because they're trying to bludgeon you into their way of thinking and their own manners of whatever they're trying to peddle as their platform, so to speak. You can care about whatever you choose to care about. Don't let anybody else tell you anything differently.
Second of all, what is this nihilistic horse shit? You never aspire for anything, never aim for greatness and meaning. This is the dude the media wants us to believe is going to save young men from the alt-right pipeline.
Yeah, we've seen how many puff pieces have been pushing him up, and he's still continued to somehow fumble that and make himself a fool at every moment of his life.
Yeah, okay.
Kind of funny, isn't
it? Unfuckable losers. Like, okay, congrats on the sex, bro. Check out this sex haver over here. I'm sure all those unfuckable losers could eat.
Didn't he, like, go to a fucking brothel? Like, allegedly he can get laid on somebody else, or with somebody else if you wanted to, but he still went and paid for sex? Like, what the fuck, bro?
Easily go to foreign brothels and pay for sex
there it
like
is,
you,
right there.
Hassan. Something weird about a man who could easily consensually get sex from a woman but chooses to go to a brothel. I don't know. Just saying.
Imagine.
Also, 35? No kids? Like, I'm sorry, that just pisses me off. Like, sitting in his ugly ass $600 Gucci sweater. I swear I've never seen this guy in a fucking normal ass t-shirt. Sitting on his high horse, looking down at people for wanting something more out of life. I don't understand how someone could be so mentally mind raped.
It's almost like he's got so much in life that he doesn't understand what it's like to see from the perspective of somebody who wants more. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting food for thought on that one.
That this is their reaction to such like a simple, wholesome concept. Like, literally, no joke, the entire meaning of life is somehow confusing to Hassan Piker, anti-natalist. If I saw a child that looked like that, I'd probably attack it. I felt like hitting her. The right-wing nutjob seeing this.
The person just said they felt like hitting them in reference to what looks like a child. Okay. Really? You're really gonna put that on the internet?
And feeling paternal instincts are just predators. The only instinct I feel as a man right now is self-defense. I want to kill it. Yes, the ones saying they want to protect a
Holy
kid
shit, bro.
are the predators,
Calm
not the
down.
ones saying they want to kill it. The only thing I felt while watching this is pure bloodlust for that annoying creature. I hate children so much. Before you come at me, yes, I'm a 35-year-old crazy cat lady and proud of it. Stay.
Bro. This is a cry for help. I'm honestly thinking that maybe we need to have a program on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, that if you post something like this and enough people vote on it, they send like your local PD to your house to do a wellness check. This person is unwell. Maybe we're approaching it from the wrong angle. Maybe these people might actually have some type of disorderly thing going on in their mind and they actually need help.
Mad. First of all, every time you see a little smiley face like that, that's how you know that person is madder than they've ever been in their entire life. Listen, obviously, if you simply don't want kids, that's fine. Like,
you know,
whatever.
cuteness aggression is a thing, but it's probably not afflicting them. No,
but the
it's
societal
not. That is not cuteness
aggression.
That's just
between
aggression.
Men and women here, how they handle this situation is so like fascinating to me.
I'm probably never having kids. I'm probably gonna play video games for the rest of my life. I'm probably gonna be as hot for as long as I can, and I'm probably gonna keep making money. That's probably what's gonna happen for the next 40 years until people are just gonna keep being mad at me about it.
Good. Do whatever you want to do. That's fine. If they're mad at you about it, they're the crazy ones. Who cares? If that's what you want to do, go for it. Nobody's telling you not to. I'll never tell you not to. If that's what you think is going to make you happy, pursue it. Huge.
Menopause is going to hit me like a brick wall, but at least I will be in the bag until then. You don't want kids? I'll do it whenever I want. I don't think I'm running out of time.
Absolute delusion. I feel like a lot of men in this situation are like,
damn, I wish I had a family. That sucks. Women overcompensate and they pretend to be proud of it, and it just comes off as really kind of sad. And I guess it's like, as a woman for—
By the way, that absolute delusion was crazy. That kind of hit me and stun locked me for a second. I mean, again, if she wants to do that, it's fine. It's not my job to tell her what is or isn't correct, because I don't care. Do I have my opinions about it? Absolutely. Am I in agreement that it's delusional? Yeah, probably. Is it worth voicing that opinion online? No, because I don't care. But Shu hitting her with the absolute delusion, my God, that was... ouch.
For a long time, it's like, oh, you're too young to have kids. Don't have kids. It will ruin your life and your body and your career. Don't have children. And then all of a sudden you hit a certain age and it's like, you're eggs, ma'am.
Yep.
I get it. It's frustrating. I get it. I hid my pregnancy from the internet. Nobody knew I was pregnant.
Smart move.
Well, some of you guessed, because I was fat as f***. But anyway, I hid it from the internet. And while I was like 5 months pregnant, I was getting tweets from like groypers and like, TikTok, your eggs are drying up. But this like, you haters, I got my cats.
It's like, dude, who cares about what random people on the internet say? Like, who cares? As long as you do what you want to do, and that's what you know truly that you want to do, whatever. As long as it's not illegal or harming anybody else, who the fuck cares?
Enough. Stop spreading that attitude. Stop being a crab in a bucket. Like, even if you don't have children, that's fine. You could find other meaning in your life, obviously.
But you don't gotta tell me that it's morally justifiable to say that your opinion is better.
But don't encourage that type of mindset.
Exactly.
The amount of anti-natalist propaganda young men and young women see nowadays is like
it's insane.
But the biggest anti-natalist propaganda has to be like $3,000 rent, $2,000 daycare, and student debt, honestly. Like,
we are in agreement on this. We are wholly in agreement on this.
If we're being honest. It's just sad because, like, through all of history...
We probably don't agree on the solution, but we agree that there is a problem.
Like, imagine your ancestors. They've been through, like, war and famine, and you're just gonna end your bloodline because the rent is too high. But it's understandable. They don't feel like they can support a child. They can barely support themselves, especially on one income, like how it used to be. Those days are gone. You know, if I was president and I wanted to make America great again, that would be the thing I focus on the most. But no, we have to do another bullshit.
And that's why you'll never be president.
War in the Middle East. Okay, whatever, I'm not...
Oof.
We're not going into that, not in this video. Lots of strange reactions to this game.
God willing, it'll change.
Childless men do not have paternal instincts the way childless women have maternal instincts. Men first experience paternal instincts once they have their own children, and typically—
Says person who probably has no psychology degree or knows nothing about the topic. Oh my gosh.
Those maternal instincts are only ever felt for their own children and no one else's.
Yeah.
Men are not
absolutely.
nurturers. Men don't—
That's why, you know, we have ubiquitous stories from cultures across the world of nearly the same thing about men who have their paternal instincts activated upon whatever situation that is thrust upon them, that naturally they're protectors. Wow, like, I can't imagine that there being stories like this that existed for literally tens of thousands of years.
Gush over cute kids in public. Men don't have baby fever. If a man wants to possess a child for any reason other than it being a product of his own lineage, he's likely a predator.
Wow.
What? Okay. First of all, even from like anecdotal common sense, this is just not true. This is obviously bullshit. Research literally shows that childless men experience like the desire for fatherhood almost just as much as childless women experience the desire for motherhood.
Imagine it being just a different way of expressing itself, that maybe, and hear me out, maybe she can't possibly understand because she's not a man. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Young men want children more than young women do. Now,
this is an insane graph, by the way. This is actually a very scary graph. Let's see, was it among young adults who do not have children, percentage of them saying that they blank have children, that they blank want to or do not want to have children someday. It is insane that we are now at the point where men are in the majority of wanting to have children over women. That is a scary graph.
nowadays. Many men, including childless men, exhibit caregiving, protective responses to infants, even if they're not their own. All through history, men have protected, mentored, even died for kids that weren't their own. Also, with this
that
logic,
graph
like,
is really
uncle,
strange to me.
stepdads, adoptive father.
How do you mean by that? What do you mean by it's strange to you? Like strange as in like the scary way, or strange as in like something didn't seem right to you?
There's like anyone like that is a predator. Like men just have the protector gene, and this game just activates it. It's really not deeper than that. Yes,
Really,
it's
it's not
true
that
men
deep,
don't
yeah.
have maternal instincts, but men do have paternal instincts.
Imagine that word already existing in the English language to describe something that has been there for quite some time. Isn't that strange how we have a word for that and it's been a word for a while?
There's a reason this game is about protecting her from evil robots in space and not like, I don't know, breastfeeding her. Yes, women and men are
Wild.
different. And I like a huge factor in this very popular trope is that the man gradually develops paternal instincts over the child despite his stoic, emotionally distant, masculine nature.
Which, by the way, is like a trope of storytelling for literally as long as I can remember in my life, and probably longer than most people can remember because it existed for thousands of years. Any graph that on the internet always raises my data hackles because I want to see the collection data behind it. It just disquieted to see that become the, but it's just disquieting to see that to become the algorithm. Exactly. The word is there. They are not good with the dictionary. Well, yeah, we've seen that they're not very good with the dictionary because they obviously don't know what most words mean. Strange how that works, isn't it?
These gamers are experiencing that through the main character.
Very
if
true,
Capcom's
very
goal
true.
with Pragmata was to make everyone who plays this game want to be a parent, then they've done an amazing job. I always sit back when Diana starts playing and think to myself, so this is what it's like to have a daughter? She's so cute.
I think that this is a completely anodyne tweet. It might even be, banish the thought, it might even be a bit wholesome. Wow. I wonder how many people had a problem with this.
And for the record, yes, that is what having kids is like. It's also not so fun stuff and lots of responsibility, but the good parts completely outweigh the bad and
That's
make
what
it
I've heard.
all worth it. There were hundreds of tweets from people, mostly childless people, mind you, being like, that's not what having a child is like, actually, you stupid gamer. It's actually terrible and awful. Men
Yeah.
like this view having a daughter like having a pet dog. Once she grows up and isn't a cute little girl anymore, they'll begin to resent
Said person who didn't have any children and also probably has some unresolved issues from their childhood.
her. Men really do want kids the way kids want a puppy. All the fun, but none of the responsibilities.
Said person with no kids and probably has unresolved trauma.
I don't like the way you guys talk about children. Like, they aren't toys. People
Yeah,
will lose
okay,
their
bud.
f***ing minds when they realize that kids aren't like a dog or cat. They're a goddamn nightmare.
Imagine.
Watching a child play with a toy and actually raising a child are two completely separate things. Kids are adorable when they're calm and playful, but little demons when they're screaming, snotting, and destroying your shit and keeping you up at night. Men really
Okay.
think having children is easy and fun. It's not so fun when they're pissing and shit and crying nonstop. Do you have
Okay.
kids? No, and I got my tube side 3 years ago, but thanks for asking. Wow.
I think the funny thing is about it is they were trying to make a point about like, this is what it would be worth. Like, this is the times that it would be worth it if you had a kid. Like, this is when you would see that the worth would be coming into what it would be. And they just decided to say, no, in all circumstances, you are wrong. It's like, okay, like, imagine,
Wow, Diana's so cute. Maybe I want kids one day.
right?
Did you know they poop and pee and cry?
Yeah,
Why
no
this
shit, bro.
compulsive need to counter signal this? Watch
Because it goes and runs in opposition to everything that they think that they are. It runs in opposition to everything that they've been taught in life, and confronting the ugly reality that they have been lied to for the entirety of their life is too much of a mental computation that they're not able to do.
Watching a fictional kid play with toys for a few seconds and thinking that's what it's like raising an actual human being is probably a sign you have zero idea what it really looks like being a parent, and you should
I'm
not
sure
base
you
your
do too.
decision off a video game character.
Imagine.
Wait, this community note. OP is an e-girl with an OnlyFans account. You stupid gamers don't get it. Doom scrolling TikTok and having multiple failed situationships is true happiness. Children are a
Yeah,
burden.
man.
Nobody is saying parenting is easy. Nobody said that. All the parts parents say are
they were reading way too far into literally something that nobody said.
Best parts. All the parts parents say are worth it. That is what people are seeing and yearning for. They have this like insane compulsion to attack anything that's like remotely pro-family, I guess because it culturally clocks as conservative.
Well, no, it confronts them with the ugly reality that they've been lied to.
Or else you're doing a fascist propaganda or something.
That they willingly participated in a lie.
For humanity. On one side, people who long for love.
You know, the more I stare at how some women talk about children, the more I'm so glad as a woman I dodged this mindset. Like, I think the funny thing is you are probably now in a majority, or at least a plurality of women. I think there's a lot of women who can agree to that statement, and I think every day is another woman that would agree with that statement, because it's starting to get to the point where they're kind of horseshoe theorying back around to the point where they just hate everybody. Like there's no sacred cow. They just hate everybody.
They're deeper things, and they're in touch with their humanity.
And
on
once
the
you
other
hate
side,
everyone,
miserable, insane
guess that's
freaks
it.
who want to destroy
Nobody's gonna like
everything
you.
pure and wholesome. And then on the sidelines, normal people who just think this is a fun game.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's probably most people. I think we're a little too online sometimes. So
yeah,
we have established that the Broveries have been activated by this game, but is
Wild.
the male biological clock real?
In
Unlike
a way.
women who are born with a specific number of eggs, men create sperm all their life. Right now, as we speak, your balls are creating sperm.
That's an insane stare.
Men can technically get someone pregnant all their life. And by someone, I mean a woman, not a
Okay.
femboy. You can't get a femboy pregnant. Stop trying. Sperm quality
I literally heard the collective, "Ah, damn it," from people on the internet. Oh man.
tends to decline over time. Lower sperm count and more DNA damage to the sperm occurs. These changes usually start after 35 to 40 years old. So as men age, the risk of passing on genetic mutations increases. Similar to maternal age, higher paternal age has been associated
I was a little bit later with my parents, so like I can kind of understand that. And like that was a big risk, obviously, when they were starting their family. So, and I know a lot of families have been starting a lot later nowadays, which is kind of interesting with the rise of correlative issues. So, yeah, like that is a scary thing.
with autism, schizophrenia, so basically being a Shoe-on-Head fan, and other
Misshead is a crazy fucking thing to be talking about this with,
rare
by the way.
genetic disorders, as well as the chance of miscarriage rates being higher. So when Red Pill Manosphere people tell you like, oh, you have all the time in the world to have children, bro, focus on yourself, queen, get that bag. Like, technically, they're correct. Physically, you do have all the time in the world, but that doesn't mean you should wait. Having kids is more than the ability to reproduce. You want energy to chase.
That is one thing that definitely I understand. So, like, I think what she's going to talk about here is when you have family or when you have children, when you're like older, so to speak, you're not able to give them the experience of being a child as nearly as adequately as when you're younger, because, you know, obviously you're older, your body's not what it used to be. So keeping up with them, especially in like older males, like we're talking like 40 here, you are not equipped to be able to keep up with a young child.
A toddler around.
So you knew exactly what she did. She totally did know exactly what she did with that.
Time. You want to see your kid
And I just saw it.
graduate and
It's
maybe
wild.
have children of their own. You want to give your parents grandchildren. You
Yes.
don't want to be a super old dad or mom. But if that's how it happens, that's how it happens, and that's
You can't
great.
control that. Yeah.
Life is not a Hallmark movie, but it should not be the ideal for men and women. Like,
True.
if you are in a stable relationship,
Honestly, we should probably be shooting for basically where it was at a while ago, where in your mid-20s, after you've graduated high school, maybe into college, you should be targeting the ability to start a family and settle down with somebody and starting that life. And I think that was healthier for everybody. I think that was basically where, like, that was the ideal. And now we've been pushing it further and further back, due in part to a lot of societal changes. I think that we probably, as a group, as a society, need to reevaluate the direction and the path that we're on.
Get married and have kids as soon as possible. Honestly, it's the stable relationship part I think people are having the most trouble with. It's easy to be like, find a wife and get married and have kids, bro. And it's like
that's the thing that's always weird to me is like, not but a generation ago. So my grandparents were married for 70 years. 70? No. They were married for maybe. They were married for about 65, maybe 60 years actually. But they as soon as they got married right out of high school, and they were married for the rest of their life. Through the ups and through the downs, and they had children early. A generation later, hard to find somebody who wasn't divorced by the time you were settling down for kids. A lot changed in 2 generations, and I'd really like to go back to the expectation is you stay married for a while. Obviously, of course, I'm not advocating for people to stay with abusive relationships. I just wish that it was more expected that when you do get married, you're not going to end the marriage over things that are ostensibly trivial.
Find a wife. From where? The wife store? Listen, I believe you will have that one day, Anon. I believe you will have that wife and daughter or son. You will have a little Diana of your own one day. You will hang those drawings on your fridge. Don't blackpill. Don't doom. We're all gonna make it.
Doom.
Same to you ladies watching. If I can make it,
no doom,
you can
no
make
doom.
it. So what did you guys think of this? Have you played Pragmata? Did you like it? Did it make
I'm
you feel those
playing
fatherly or motherly instincts? Is your biological clock ticking? Do you have baby fever?
I mean, I don't know if I really felt those fatherly instincts, so to speak, but, obviously I don't want anything bad to happen to her because, she's a game mechanic in my mind. Maybe I'm not the target audience for that because I kind of take a little bit more analytical approach to it, where to me, it's numbers in a spreadsheet and game mechanics, but I can see where people come from on this.
If you like this video, please subscribe, and if you can, donate to my Patreon, link down below. All Patreons get the raw, uncensored version of the video a day before it comes out, and I'm going to start doing live streams for Patreon members only, so that should be fun. And I will see you guys soon with a new video, a slot video, hopefully. Bye!
You would throw hands for Diana? There you go, you're the target audience. All right, thank you, Shoe on Head. Thank you for your great video over a gaming topic. Dear God, we don't have to call her out of retirement for a Gamergate 2.0. All right. With that, I am now very tired. I went over nearly an hour from where I intended to end it, but I really kind of wanted to get to this because I've been sleeping on it and I really wanted to watch this video. So here it is. Everybody, I want you all to have a good night. I want you all to cherish what you have, and I want your week to go well, and your future endeavors, if may I never see you again, to go very well. I have a Discord. You're free to join the Discord. I post my schedules there every day, or every week rather. We'd love to have you on the Discord. We're getting new members a little semi-frequently. It's very nice to see people talk in the Discord. It's really a very friendly environment. And you get to vote on my Thursday indie streams, by the way, because I usually take a vote at the beginning of the week that allows people to see what indie games I'm going to be maybe thinking about playing coming up. Tomorrow will be a continuation of some of the indie games that we've been doing. Thursday is the new indie game, and Friday is community games. We've been usually playing Helldivers, but we're looking for more people with diverse interests to be able to play more community games. We're definitely thinking about maybe adding Darktide to it, because I kind of enjoyed that game and I'd like to play it again. Maybe Phasmophobia, maybe some other types of party games like that. But yeah, we'd love to see people. We'd love to see them, see people show up if you want to. Don't feel pressured. But other than that, hope everybody has a great rest of their night. And here's hoping I see you in the future. Good night, everybody.